So y'all have packets. I think you already have some of the stuff for the building, but I went ahead, Kelsey, we went ahead and printed some more just in case. And then the other packet of our policies right underneath that, just the things we talked about, some of the changes, and then just some.
If you don't mind reading this right here for me, she said, what'd you say? I mean, the 20 things at one time, and I'll stop reading it for you. I appreciate it.
I said, I got 20 tabs open right now, just around.
I can't do that, I get it now.
Christine, you cut the cord with that. Do you mind if I set this down?
No, that's fine, that's
I've been
fine.
vaccinated, you've had it.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
I just saw it.
You just want the herd immunity, you'll get that. Double looking for my parents.
That's fine.
You look like some kind of movie star.
Yeah, I definitely ain't that, my friend. I've had all the shots there is to be had, I reckon, so. You got your booster, wasn't you?
Huh?
Did you get your booster?
Oh, yeah, I got the booster. Transfer station. I got the booster. I meant to ask some young lady, the other young lady about if our last class, if they showed up for that, so I think I'm down to one.
I haven't checked to see if yours and Todd's has updated. I know that Terry took the same class as y'all did, and his updated, so he's finished, and then y'all just have the one in Savannah today.
Yeah, Terry, look. I don't know how he got ahead of us.
Well, Terry knows I was there, cause he saw me on the Zoom.
There's is.
Terry, you complete?
Of course.
I'm complete.
Derek's is.
I think Derek's probably complete too.
ACCG.
For the core certification? One class.
You got the same one I got and Dennis has got in November?
Yep.
Yep. And it's not till Monday, so I can't say I'm gonna be done by the time they have the thing.
Can we, reckon we can get that like from the University of Phoenix or something? Hey, I'm sure for enough money you can.
Yeah. For enough money, Jeff will come over and teach me and you for a.
I guarantee you.
So there, you know Greg East, let's say he's an insurance guy. If you're watching the way he acts, him and Jeff gotta be kin, so I told him one day, I said, somewhere y'all can.
I can give you mine.
He's out right now, but,
The problem is, he's still listed as being.
But before everybody leaves tonight, I do have some dates for Josh. We'll see if we can make something work.
What you gotta do is, hey, how you doing tonight? Good to see you. What you gotta do is make that.
I don't think I'm familiar with that. There's our legal counsel.
You don't have.
There he is.
All right, how y'all? But I know we did.
He's a guardian of the galaxy.
In full disclosure, we've been talking about you, but it was all good.
Yeah, right.
You believe that?
Well, I'll get the tape from Christina.
I told you to appreciate my humor.
No, I said that's, it's a good question.
It wasn't intended to be a question, it's been funny.
You've probably been asked that before, and it needed some explanation.
Well, not really, to be honest, but I asked it myself before I took it on.
Well, what I asked Mike was in the event push come to shove on it, were you gonna bill both ways on it?
You know, they'll say, one lawyer in the town starved to death, two can make a good living.
I think it's two for price of one. So that's the question, if Mike comes up to that
Pretty
meeting?
much it right there.
Is he on double time or half time?
Well, I know, we might have to have a negotiation on that right there.
Triple. You ought to get triple time, you can put up with
I
that.
would think that it'd be, I would think that it'd be split, but we'll see.
That's what I normally do.
It inevitably comes back to us one way or the other.
I can promise you that, now, you're not gonna get an attorney that doesn't do it. I've never met one that said, I forgot to bill you for this.
If you can come up with a better way for me to make a living, I am all ears.
Do that. I never thought of that before.
I had an employee pass away this year, and he knew that he had some things going on. He asked me to refer him to an attorney to do his will and all this, and I did. That was the first mistake.
Right.
Because we're still debating over this. You know, he's gone, of course, but the issue is that he was married twice to women that were still legally married to someone else when they married him.
And he was not ever married at all.
That's kind of the way I looked at it, but, you know, the lawyers don't feel that way at all.
Yeah, that's another one. I just read this one just recently. Lawyer's job is to find ambiguities where there are none.
I mean, every time I go over there, I just go in, I said, what y'all find this week?
Yeah.
Turn it over.
No.
I don't know. That's gonna be a question.
I did, thank you. I know.
It's just like a.
That's right. I just put my contacts, just send every contacts on my reading glasses, because at least. Are you a progressive?
I am, but I just like, I'm trying to find a spot.
Progressive for me is nothing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back now.
Yeah, and I don't know that we showed up here.
This is confidential road, it's not our line.
We ran the ad in the paper. To show up. Or in favor, we show up.
Down to the south.
Some ad, reference to this.
On the Danny Road, if you want water there, you gotta find the city Danny. You know, and that's where.
Yes. Welcome everybody to the Madison County Board of Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session, October 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This is a work session, so will not be the pledge until a business meeting. Chairman's report. We have a lot to report. I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. First off, I know, Zach, I think you may have run this in the paper already about the free tire disposal October 1st till November 6th, 2021. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday only, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The last time we run this tire amnesty, we collected 42 tons of tires. So I'd like to tell everybody I appreciate the efforts of what you're doing and continue doing those same efforts. This is for the residents of Madison County and not for business. So moving on past the tire disposal, there's also, and I have a note here, the next shredding event is scheduled for November 13th of this year here at the government complex. Nobody knows what that means. It's a shredding event for important documents. If you need to get rid of them, we'll shred them here on site. Couple notes. October 23rd, the Rotary will be constructing our new ramp on the back of the Board of Elections building. I spoke with Mr. Ed Brown. That is on the calendar for that day. Very excited to have those guys helping us out. Just an update from this past Saturday. A lot of y'all known and seen it on the internet or Facebook or the newspaper, but TJ and Friends held an event here in the parking lot, and it was a huge success, one of the largest turnouts they'd ever had. I spoke to Angel Fisher after the event. They collected $7,500. All donations will be going to 15 cancer patients here in the county. How that works is if you or a family member get diagnosed with cancer, they bring you a check for $500. It helps you pay your transportation back and forth to the doctor. So that'll help 15 patients. A couple things we've got going on. Well, we have a lot of good stuff going on, but one of them, we received a $6,000 ACCG safety grant last week. We also received $27,000 EMS grant. We are currently writing another EMS grant. We don't know exactly what the funds will go up to. That has not been disclosed yet by the state. And we are also currently working on the First Responders grant, which is, most of you heard already, it's the $1,000 grant for officers, EMS, paramedics, EMTs, and volunteer firemen. Up to $300 for the volunteer firemen. So we are, I know Butch McDuffie is putting together the list for the fire departments, for the volunteer fire departments, and working with Christina and Bobby Smith on getting this submitted. The portal was supposed to open Friday, but it has not been opened yet. But hats off to Bobby for receiving the $27,000 and currently working on the new up and coming grant. So all good stuff. A lot of stuff coming down the pipe. I'm going to do road updates right quick in the chairman's report. State routes are almost cut throughout the county. Over the last couple of weeks, we started cutting back the right-of-ways with the mowers. Going to be working with one crew of 3 tractors, going to be cutting towards Hull in the next few days, weather permitting. Had the patch wagon out patching holes all over the county as usual. Sidearm cutting around James Adams Road and James Springs Road when they are not hauling gravel to Roy Woods Road, which is just about complete, Mr. Kirk.
Good deal.
We're continuously applying gravel as needed when they call. And for some reason, we've had a bunch of stopped up drain culverts, which is, they've had to do a lot of flushing of those to get them out, because the ends of them are clear, but the centers are stopped up, but luckily we have the equipment to route them out with. But Alan, thank you very much for this.
Could I say one
Sure.
thing? At this point, I've got several calls, especially about the Roy Woods Road and some other places, and they're so appreciative. And they said how good that the work crew worked with everybody, and so I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Alan, if you'll pass that on to all of them.
Thank y'all.
Because this is a work session, we can speak freely. Did you catch the guy today on Roy Woods Road on a 4-wheeler tearing up a brand new road?
That's one of my truck drivers complained about the 4-wheelers. They actually saw him out there tearing up Roy Woods Road, so after we don't put the gravel down, you can tell exactly where he was at doing donuts and everything else in the road, so I did not get to see him today, so.
Yeah.
But I told any of my guys, if they do, please let us know, we'll get a deputy or somebody to take care of that situation, so.
Yeah.
Got him on trail cam. be aware, we have trail cameras in a lot of places.
There you go. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Woman on a blue board.
Not to belabor the whole point, but the Roy Woods Road has been, I mean, it gets torn up a lot. There's a lot of kids that like to go down there with their four-wheelers and their trucks, and it makes it a big mess. And I went down there and it was really, really in bad shape, probably worse than I ever imagined. And, but the folks down there that, on that road are feeling good, and I am very appreciative of what the county's done, and other roads down there in that area also people have called about. So I told them we got a small crew, but we got a good crew.
That's right. Thank you,
There you
Mayor.
go. Thank you.
And then for the public to keep in mind that just because it's a dirt road, it's still a county road, and it's still illegal to be on it. You know, you might get asked to, not ride on it again if you're just traveling it, but I promise you, if you're doing donuts, you're probably gonna get arrested.
That's it.
Just keep that in mind, it's not private drives. Business involving guest groups and multiple visitors. Ms. Kelsey Tyner, you gonna start? Come on up.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad that we're finally here. I feel like we've been on the agenda multiple times and we haven't got to come, so I'm pumped that we're
Almost
here.
the best kept secret ever, right?
I know, right? Nobody knows. We've got Shelley and Mr. Allen putting up some larger images for you guys. I believe you have some handouts that Christina probably had in your packet, and I believe Shelley passed some extras out just in case.
You can bring it up here if you like.
We were nervous.
Whoever's on.
We were nervous.
Yeah, you can move it, we just put it right there so people, they could get up to the board.
All right, when it falls
Wherever.
apart, it's not on us.
It's supposed to be like
Christina said
magnetic.
she made it.
We'll blame
I
it
found it in
we'll blame it
the
on
email.
Alan if it
That's a
falls
good
apart.
idea.
That's
I like that. Ooh, see, look. Look what happened. There we go.
I'll let y'all look at it for a minute, then unless y'all can see it on your small one, if y'all wanna see the bigger prints.
We've got
The
a
small ones are, like Kelsey said, the updated
Yes.
version.
small, papers that you have with the blueprints
Yeah, you
are
can turn it around, let,
the most updated. The big version that we have up here is our older version, but we were unable to get our hands on the updated big print, but we'll get it to you, we just don't have it right now. So the small version is the one that is gonna be the most up to date. Well, hello again, I'm so excited to be here. I've gotten to know most of you. If you have not got to meet me, or if I have not got to meet you, I'm Kelsey, I'm the director at the Senior Center, and we're so excited to be here. You wanna introduce yourself, Shelley?
I'm Shelley, I'm the director at the rec department, and so when Kelsey came to me with this idea, I jumped on it, so we are very, very excited to show you what we have planned.
And y'all know Alan.
Yeah,
He's
I'm involved in.
the man who needs no introduction. He's been super helpful and supportive. So we're here tonight to talk to you guys about the MCCAL, the Madison County Center for Active Living. It is everything that Madison County has needed for such a long time, and I'm super excited to be here to present it to you guys tonight. So what we're wanting is a multi-use facility that's going to house 2 departments for our county, the Senior Center as well as the Rec Department, and it's going to serve every single person in this county, from the youngest age eligible to participate in a Rec Department sport, which is 4, up to the oldest of old people that can drive and do whatever they get to me. If they can get to me, or if I can pick them up, then they will be served by this facility, as well as the hundreds of homebound seniors that are living in this community that cannot get to us, but we serve on our Meals on Wheels program. So I'm not sure what paper you all have in front of you now, but what we're hoping to do is to be able to have this facility built to serve the rec department on one side and to serve the Senior Center on the other. Okay, yeah, so you have my little cheat sheet of the what and the why. So like I said already, it's going to be a multi-use facility for county residents of all ages. 1 footprint, housing 2 departments, meeting the need for the recreation department. If you've seen their offices, you know the dire needs that they have for office space, a restroom, ADA, all the
ADA compliant,
ADA compliant,
everything.
all the things. Program expansion and accommodation for the Senior Center and the fast-growing rec department services. I mean, I think that you guys, your soccer program has...
Yeah, we have 300 kids in soccer this year, which is an enormous amount of kids. So that's more than half of the participants we have for sports.
So this facility would allow multi-purpose rooms for the rec department, multi-purpose rooms and activity centers for the senior center. It would also provide a fitness center for the citizens of Madison County, not just the seniors. So it would be commercial size. As big as the senior center building is that is currently standing on 98, that's about the size of the fitness center that we're proposing to be inside this facility. So there will be no more driving to Royston, driving to Athens, bypassing straight through Danielsville to hit Commerce to go to those gyms. We will have one right here in Madison County that will be available to anyone living in the county, or we will potentially sell out of county membership to people, you know, from Franklin County who want to come to us instead of bypassing to go somewhere else. This facility will also provide us the ability to serve healthier and better meals for our seniors. There's a cook-on-site kitchen facility that's going to be in the new building, and so all of our meals will be prepped and cooked there on site. For years, we have had to depend on a food vendor to bring us in pre-cooked meals that we are bringing up to temp. We're trying to spice it up the best that we can and make it yummy, but there's only so much you can do with food that's been cooked from an hour and a half away and then brought to you. So this will allow us program
We'll move that down now.
Yeah.
I can see.
This is just the exterior elevation. It's not super exciting to look at in black and white, but we'll get a nice pretty picture, but we can flip it to the floor plan too. So in addition to rec department offices, senior center staff offices, expanded facilities for the rec department with multi-purpose rooms, same thing for the senior center. It will also have that cook-on-site kitchen, like we talked about, with a banquet like dining hall for my seniors to be able to eat in and enjoy their programs in, as well as a large banquet hall on the back side of the facility to do anything else you can think of. You want to have a wedding reception, you can do it here. If you want to have trainings and conferences and gosh, charge who knows how many fees for hosting those things in this county instead of us having to drive to Clark County or Jackson County or wherever it is that we're going for our training, we can do those there. There will also be a warming kitchen in that banquet hall so people who are having events like trainings or family reunions, birthday parties,
Weddings, just
whatever,
they need it.
Yes, have the ability to have food catered in or have their food prep done there. And one of the most exciting things about the whole facility is the giant indoor gymnasium that we will be able to have and offer the community. I'll let Shelley embellish a little bit on what that's going to look like.
So this gym is something that we need now. We've needed for many, many years. Right now we do have the gym next door. It's great, but there's no air conditioning and it's not really feasible for the programming that we have, being so large. So this gym is going to be a double court gym. It's going to be able to house basketball, volleyball, so we can do, with 2 courts, we can have 2 games going at one time. For both of those, we'll have a curtain in the middle to keep balls from flying everywhere. We have massive number of bleachers. One of the main things was being able to host tournaments using this gym, which again brings in revenue for the county. So with that, we wanted to make sure we had enough spectator seating. So this gym is something that very much needed. We can also rent it out. We can have open gym. Right now we have our basketball court that's outside that everybody loves to use. But during the winter, not so much. When it rains, not so much. So having this indoor facility will allow us, with the amount of staff that we would have already here, we have that access for the community to come in and use it. There would also be a large storage area at the back to house all of our equipment, so we have everything in one place instead of having it right now with using the schools. We have equipment at every gym, so with this we have it all in one place, easy access for us. It is not just a 1 floor, it would have a 2nd floor which would house an indoor walking track, as well as the top half would have 3 multi-purpose spaces available for communities, rentals, birthday parties, things like that.
Yoga classes,
classes,
all the fitness classes,
everything can be in this one facility.
Summer day camp program.
Right, our day camp is something that we only have 30 kids right now that we can do because we don't have that indoor facility, so this will be allow us to expand on that as well.
There's also a hospitality suite, there's locker rooms, so again, like she was saying, it would make us eligible to be able to host these tournaments and host things that we're right now having to travel outside of the county to be able to do. Again, wellness program expansion, not just for the rec department side, but for the senior center as well. With the multi-purpose rooms that we'll have in here, we'll be able to host any and all fitness class or wellness program that you can think of, making us eligible also for additional grants. There's a lot of grants that are specifically geared towards wellness programs, and right now we don't have anywhere to host them, so it would make us eligible for that as well. The small version is the most updated version of the gym. So this one that we have is the first one that we kind of drafted. It's much smaller, so you would definitely want to pay attention to that version that you have. It is the most accurate and up-to-date. What happens if this gets built? It leaves an empty senior center, and there are departments in this county that could greatly benefit from a new facility. That would be an answered prayer to them, as this would be an answered prayer to us. So we do have a building that would be available for someone else to take over and utilize. Again, we talked about the different ways that this can generate revenue from fitness memberships at our fitness center, the open basketball court and gym, like you talked about, rentals for all the multi-purpose rooms, for the banquet hall, what else, hosting conferences, tournaments, you name it, and we'll be able to put a price tag on it if we wanted to. And we would also be able to just use that space for the county without charge for things. I know often EMS will need my facility for a training, or because we're one of the larger buildings in the county, and I have to shut down operations to be able to host a chamber event or a training event. I have a training on Wednesday for my drivers, and we can't deliver meals, we have to shut everything down because we just don't have the space to be able to do it right now. So this would just open up a lot of different doors to be able to provide better service and offer more things to county employees and members of the community. A lot of information. A lot of big pictures, a lot of little pictures. I know you probably have lots of questions, and we hope that we can answer any of those that you have. One of the big ones is probably, how are we going to pay for this, and how much is it going to cost? That's where we're hoping to get some county support. We're real good at fundraising, and we're good at asking people for donations and smiling real sweet and saying, hey, what can we do to make you motivated to get involved in our project? And we have been at work doing some of those things. Of course, there are grants that we can apply for as well. And that is actually the original route that we wanted to go. We sat down and I was thinking for myself, not even on big scale, how can I make this happen for the senior center? And there are grants available, but it would not have best served this community for me to sit down and apply for a small grant for an add-on to my senior center. That wouldn't have done anything for the rest of the community, and it really wouldn't have done very much for me other than maybe giving me some updated bathrooms and a little bit more space. So when we sat down and looked at this grand scale, this better serves the community, and if we can get county support and we can get donations and we can do fundraisers, we can fast track this and get it done the right way and in a way that we control. With some of the bigger grants for building, we can apply for them and go through the process all day long, but we're looking at 3 to 5 year commitments, and they can tell me what color I have to paint my walls. And we want this to be a county-driven, county-controlled project. So that's what brought us here to you guys to see what kind of support we could drum up to get the green light on this and get this moving. Do you have anything that you wanted to say about grants?
Not really about grants, but we have talked to community members, and we do have the support of a few of them in terms of being donors towards this project. And I know one of the big things is land, where we're going to put this. We are working that out, or trying to work that out right now, so that we do have the area potentially next to the rec department.
Yeah, the land that we're looking for, it borders up to land that is already county-owned. We've had a very successful initial meeting with one of the landowners, and we're having the second part of that meeting tomorrow. So I should hopefully have an answer to location by the end of this week. If we feel very strongly that this is something that needs to be in Danielsville, we don't want to separate the facility. We don't want to have most of our resources here in Danielsville, most of our rec department here, and then have this facility somewhere across the county. We want it to be very easy access for everyone, so we're looking to stay right on 98, stay close to Brewer Phillips, stay where we already are. And like I said, we've had a very successful meeting and have the secondary meeting scheduled tomorrow. We have Rotary Club, who is super excited and has, we've been in talks about being kind of the spearhead for a civil group campaign for fundraising. So they would want to kind of pull their efforts for Rotary, Pilot, Lions Club, and see what they can do to kind of drum up donations. I know the last time I spoke with Mr. Mike Williams, they were trying to have a fundraising goal set of around $250,000, just to kind of have a goal for them to start pulling in money from these community groups that have been so supportive of the senior center and the rec department in the past. We do have a private donor that has committed, a sizable amount of money. So we know that we're going, out of the gate, we've got, a $1.5 million donation that is confirmed. So we are wanting to take that momentum and that excitement and continue to keep it going. We potentially could have some extra SPLOSH funding left over from the Diamond Hill project.
Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see. That's up in the air. We'll see what happens. It could be $5. We'll take the $5 and we'll run with it. Every little bit helps. Every little bit helps. And of course, we will do lots of private fundraising and drumming up donations. I feel like if this is given a green light and people see that it has county support, the donations will start coming out of the woodwork. There's people who need to donate to a cause. My board is now 501c3, they're our advisory council, so they can accept some donations from people who may be a little bit hesitant to donate directly to the county. And then we still have, of course, the rec board who is not going to go that route, and so they'll be able to filter in different donations as well. But we feel like once this is a go, and we have a new pretty sign that doesn't look all wrinkly and black and white to post up at our build site. At our build site that we hope is going to be donated to us, and we will hopefully start drawing in some more financial support. And of course, there's grant funding, and we know that there's money that potentially can be allocated from you guys, from the county, that's money that's already been given, and then of course we will apply for grants endlessly to replenish some of the money that the county may have to spend if you do choose to greenlight this, because it is about a $5.3 million project. Lots of information, lots of numbers. If you heard nothing else, just don't listen to the 5.3. Listen to all the good stuff that we said before that.
So how much do you know that you've got committed?
Committed, let's see, we've got the
We have
1.5 committed, and then we have the fundraising commitment from Rotary, which I can't remember, it's 250?
I think it's 250.
250,000 that they wanted to spearhead. They wanted to try and get that among all the other groups. And then potentially I would like to report to you by the end of the week that we will have a land donation, and I can give you the value of that. And that can be used when we do apply for grants, when we say this is the income, this is what we have, and that will help us. But again, that's going to be more long term.
There are a lot of grants, like, for instance, like land and water conservation, that is 50-50, but they, like Kelsey said, they dictate a lot of what we, how we have to go about doing things. But they do offer that if you have those in-kind donations, you can put it towards that cost.
And that's not towards the cost of building. They don't pay for anything building related, so it would just be accruing land, which we hope to not even have to do. We hope that that's going to be something that is donated, or if we do have to accept a donation and make a payment, that it would be a minimal amount.
Couple quick questions. One, you already have a commitment from the state on a lot of the interior?
Yes, I didn't even mention that. I'm glad you brought that up. We do. So my state offices from the senior center side want to support new builds for senior centers. There's one grant in the entire state of Georgia that helps with new developments for senior centers, and it's only $750,000, and out of that, almost $50,000 goes towards grant writing fees. So it's not a super helpful one in this situation. But my state office has said that if this is greenlit, that they would like to help us take care of the expenses for the interior on the senior center side. Tables, banquet chairs, office furniture, all the kitchen equipment in the commercial side kitchen and the warming kitchen. Some equipment for the fitness center, because the seniors will benefit from that greatly. They want to take care of all that over the next 3 years. So I basically, at the end of their fiscal year, send in a wish list. Hey, this is what I want. They approve it, and I start ordering. So that'll take away, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of expenses in just office furniture, filing cabinets. That kitchen equipment is insanely expensive because we have to have commercial grade, health department approved everything. So that's a huge cost that we will not have to worry about.
One of the other questions that was brought up the other day when we were speaking with the landowner was the seating capacity. Could you tell the board about the seating capacity here?
Yes, so in the smaller of the two dining halls, which should be for the senior center, this is not one that we would rent out. This is one that would be closed off if the facility were rented in another capacity in the backside. We should be able to house or to feed or host upwards of 150 people in there. So it depends on how we lay it out too. So we could potentially have 200 people in there. Right now I serve about 30 to 40 seniors a day. And we are maxed out. Like we are borderline not able to socially distance if we are crammed in this space. So we would be able to host a ton more, and if we absolutely had to, we can do things in shifts, because we'll have the capabilities here to serve an 11 o'clock lunch, then we can serve a 1 o'clock lunch if our numbers just quadrupled and we needed to do that. Every other senior center who cooks on site in our region, so that's Oconee, Elbert, Jackson, and Newton County, all used to serve around, 15 to 40 seniors when they were getting their prepackaged lunches, and when they changed over to cooking on site, their numbers went, they skyrocketed. Newton County serves 200 people a day. They have to split their stuff, where they have 2 lunch meals that they serve, because it makes that big of a difference when you're cooking on site. So I fully expect that our numbers will astronomically increase. As far as the larger banquet hall, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we have enough room to host, was it 350? And again, it's going to depend on how you set up the tables and chairs. But if we had one, podium and chairs for training, we could fit a ton of people in there. But if we're trying to do a wedding or reception or something like that, where we've got the round tables, then of course that would cut that number down. But we should be able to get about 350 in there easily. And then how many will the gym?
So the gym itself, with all the bleachers out, will hold around 1,400 spectators. But of course, we're not going to have all of them in use at one time. If we're running double courts, it'll only be the top and bottom sets of bleachers. And with that, so you're looking at around 700 people or so. And then if we do just the single court, we could then use all 3 at one time. But then you have some of the bleachers that are actually behind the basketball goal, and so those are unusable seats with that. But if we only ran one, we could fit 1,400 people in there at one time.
And you have the walking track upstairs too.
For additional spectators
to
view that way.
So it'd be safe to say this facility could also be used as a civic center for the county?
Yes, and that's the goal. We want it to be all-inclusive. Everybody's needs can be met in this building. Absolutely. Any other questions?
Well, as the commissioner who probably has the most to gain from this, being the oldest one at the table,
Well,
Excellent presentation.
It is, and I wanted to say that, I have family members that use both sides of this, the senior center and the rec department, and they just, especially the senior center part of it, all I hear is just great things all the time, and, friends of theirs, and, I think that, an expansion of the senior centers, definitely would be a great thing, and of course, the rec department, because,
It'd be nice to have our own facility.
it would be nice. It would be nice, and the basketball, I know, I grew up, I went to class in that building over there, and I remember when they used to put that wax on the floors over there, and you'd have a headache all day when you sit over there and had a class, on those floors and all that. So that building is old, and we need something better.
Amen.
There you go. So I thank you, ladies.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
Any other
I know
questions?
there's been a lot of hard work y'all put in and a lot of hours, because I know Alan's been a part of it, and I've been a part of it, and some of the board members here have been bits and pieces back and forth in it, but, thank you again, and obviously, the dollar figure is just a preliminary, best guess on today's prices.
It is, and I
It's subject
do
to
feel like
change at any
that
time.
will go down some. Building costs are declining, and this was just a rough estimate. We had these plans donated to us, by the way. We didn't have to pay for this. So, we had a fantastic, we just had a great experience with Garland, Construction, and they've done this for us just as, they were passionate about the project and said, let's just donate this. We want you guys to be able to see what you're talking about. So that was a huge money saver, and, that everything that was bid on was just, like you said, preliminary prices, probably the highest that you're going to see, because they wanted to make sure they were covering everything. So, as it gets closer to time to make a vote, we can definitely crunch more numbers and talk more about how to get this done, but your support would just be absolutely the most valuable thing that we can get in the way of spearheading donations and fundraisers and other people in the community getting excited about this. Yes, sir.
Just because I hopefully have the longest time to get to that one wing, I'll ask a few other questions that just come up, and I'm not trying to beat you up, I'm just trying to get you to think. you talk about, you know, had a good conversation with potential landowner and all, and, you know, assuming all that moves forward, you know, of course, due diligence that needs to be done. Any implications or any, requests from the donor that we know of? I mean, are they looking for a tax abatement or not abatement, but, you know, a write-off to their, you know, estate and those kind of things, which take a different turn for different things and needs to have some legal consults on the appraisals and all that, making sure all that stuff's done appropriately, you know, because we don't want something to go wrong at the end of the day and they not get the benefit they think they're getting.
Right.
We talked to anybody, we confirmed that we got, you know, proper access control to the roadways that we think we might need. You know, we facilitated that with any further discussions. I know the 5.3 is noted, but unfortunately I also noticed the disclaimers of what's not included, so, I mean, do we have any swag or any ballpark idea of what those additional costs, you know, the site design, I mean, just getting power from one side of the building side, I mean, it's, all that stuff adds up a lot.
It does,
I mean,
absolutely.
and, I don't wanna be the
No,
rainy
you gotta
day
think
guy,
about it.
but.
That's why we have Alan. Hey, why are you hiding? That's why we have Alan.
$120 a square foot for a commercial building, knowing what you want even though a lot of it may be open space from the gym,
Right.
seems kinda light to me. And I think it's gonna, I don't wanna say what I think it might be, but, it's, I support the project, and I think it's a good thing that we need to look forward to, but I don't want us to get overzealous on something I think may be a little, we'll just say it's in the early stages and not maybe premature, but I'm just concerned about that pricing.
It is one of the metal construct buildings. That's what they specialize in. So it's one of the prefab. So that saved us a little bit of money there. So it is going to be that type of structure. So we're not going to be having to deal with a lot of the other more expensive materials. So I know that's all that I can say to that part of it. Alan would be the guy to maybe be able to dive in a little bit deeper. But again, that would be once we, I guess, really started looking into throwing out bids and getting hard numbers and not these preliminary estimates. As far as the requirements or the requests from the landowners, it's not been made known to us that there would be an expectation of any sort. I know that we would like to offer to survey the land and do all the things to make the transfer go over smoothly at the minimal expense to them or minimal effort to the owners. It's been a goal of mine, and I've talked to Todd and Shelley about this. We want any and all donors or people who are contributing to be grossly praised and included in whatever it is they will allow me to include them. And I want to stamp names on rooms and names on the gymnasium and names on everything if they will allow us to do so. So we, of course, will ask them, what is it that you want to see out of this? But as far as contingencies or anything like that, that hasn't been verbalized to us yet. We'll see how tomorrow's meeting goes, but I don't feel like that they're going to have a lot of the contingencies just based on how the first meeting went. And as far as the land access and things, Alan, I think that might be you too, but I think that where it's positioned, we won't have any issue with that at all, because the whole back side and left side of the property is already owned by us, and then the rest is on 98 and down Brewer Phillips, so we shouldn't have any issues there with
Only thing might be
landlocked.
D-cell lanes or something on 98. That might be the only thing they would require. I don't know that one yet, so we can find that out.
So it would have entrance from 98 then?
That's the hope. We may have to have entry on Brewer Phillips,
Okay.
but it would be nice to be right off
Not
that.
just, not just Brewer Phillips Road, but.
It just depends on what part or all, it depends on what part of it's a 44-acre tract, to seeing what transpires, if we get part of it, if we get all, we don't know any of that yet.
Just something, okay.
I think we've estimated that it would be nice to have about 13 acres, which would include plenty of room for the facility, a parking lot of sizable portion, and then the retention pond drain-off area that we're going to need. And that can be done right at the front of the property on 98, or it could be done on Brewer Phillips if that's what we needed to do, because there is a rental house that sits over towards the closer to the road on 98. But again, it is 44 acres, and I've asked for all 44, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll just get a little bit. But,
Again, I mean, a full set of D-cell lanes is gonna cost you $500,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that it just adds up that quick. So, I mean, that's a full right-hand turn lane and widen out for a left-hand turn lane coming in, so.
Right.
$500,000 quick.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will definitely, there's always something that can pop up, and again, that's when I hope we can drum up
maybe some donors from local businesses and things like that.
That's
to help
another
out
one, we
with
really
that
want
cost.
to use local Madison County businesses, and we really want to be able to contract that out as much as possible and do the grading with our own guy, do everything that we can to save money in a way that, puts back into the county or utilizes county employees.
Well, noble, there's certain construction laws and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, I have to. Mhm.
Anyway, but
Some
that
people-
leads me to the next question. The 401(c)(3) commitment, how was that structured in a manner that, and again, I'm just asking a question, is it structured in a manner that can be what the mission of that organization is? Will it legally be able to say, here, we'll donate this money to the county for a facility? Or do you have any idea how the legalities of that may work? I will be careful that all of a sudden somebody gets in the paper and you start, Lord willing, somebody starts just stroking you $500,000
I know,
checks.
just sending money.
I just want to make sure that that's, what kind of legal documents and checks and balances that we need to get to make sure that that's an appropriate
Right, avenue.
organization.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not saying it's not, I'm just
Right.
saying, I just want to be careful on stuff like that.
Mhm. It's the Madison County Senior Center Advisory Board, and so it was formed, we actually had to do some digging, and Mr. Pruitt went back and did some, all the way back from its creation back in the 80s, when it was originally constructed, and it was a big push from state and local officials. They wanted to have some type of board that worked in the interest of the senior center, and so it was kind of formed like that as a community group, and then it kind of did its thing, fizzled and dissolved, and then we reinstated it a couple of years ago. And so it basically is just an organization of community volunteers. We have Angela Rouse is on our board. We have private volunteers who've worked for the University of Georgia. We've got several, MedLink. We've had a pilot club member, just anybody in the community that takes an interest in the senior center, and they have to, be voted on. They vote in their own officers and do all of that. And so their primary mission statement is just to best serve the seniors of Madison County through the senior center. So it's not so much a goal of serving the seniors in Madison County in whatever capacity they feel should be done. It's supporting the senior center itself, and it does have ties to our state offices, so they have bylaws and they have rules and regulations through a state office. So the purpose or the benefit of having them become 501(c)(3) is that they're so much more eligible for grants, so they can apply for grants on behalf of the senior center that I would not be eligible to apply for because I don't have that same status, or of course I'd be applying under a county umbrella. And they provide a donation site for people like the donor that we have, the $1.5 million donor who has to donate to a 501(c)(3. And so that money would be put into an account that's protected, like an Edward Jones type account that's protected, and then it would just be reissued out to the senior center, to the county, whenever the time comes. So, there's all the stipulations in place where they are formed for this purpose. They couldn't, like, tomorrow say, we like this money, this is ours, we're going to go do something else with it, because they just wouldn't have the capabilities to be able to do that, because that money is being donated with some type of contract saying exactly what it's going towards, and then it'll be protected in another account for when it ever needs to be released back over to the county.
I think Frank had something to add to that.
I think you got it covered.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, so I'm trying to help you with some of that.
Yes, I appreciate the zeal, and I just want to cautiously step through it to make sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want to do it right. That was one big thing, and that was one of the reasons why we wanted to come to you guys and make this be a county project and not some puppet grant string. We really wanted open and honest communication. We wanted you to know what we were wanting to do. We wanted you to feel confident about where the money is going to be invested and how we want to get it done. And this way we can pick and choose who does what, or decide, yeah, we want to do this entrance here on 98, even though it's going to cost us extra. We know we want to do it on Brewer Phillips. We want to make those choices and not have somebody sitting in a state office who's writing the check saying, no, I like this, we're going to do this better. So, we want to comb through. They don't understand our county. Yeah, they don't understand our county. They don't know what we need and what's going to work best for us, and that's why we want it to be controlled here. And those questions need to be asked, because we're going to have to figure it out before the end of it's all over with anyway. And we want it done the right way. We don't want it rushed. We don't want it to be controlled by other people. We want this to be done the best way possible for everybody in Madison County. So great question. That's, yeah.
Question?
Can I ask a question? I'm assuming a facility like this would bring in employment. Do you have a rough amount of new employees that you have to hire?
It really just kind of depends on how quickly the programs grow. Because I know like right now, I'm staffed and we're good, but I'm assuming not so much our Meals on Wheels program needing more people, but in-house for more programs, we might need someone. But also, another huge benefit to having us together is being able to work together with staff. So right now, my senior center is open 7:30 to 3:30, Monday through Friday. If you're not a senior who is completely retired and available before then, you're not benefiting from my services. In this situation, you know, if you have a gym membership as a senior center member, you're going to be able to come to that gym from 7:30 in the morning when we get there to 10 o'clock at night when the last rec department staff member leaves. So it's going to just amplify when people are able to access the services in the building, and that may be where we end up having to have part-time employees added.
As far as the rec side goes, this, as far as with part-timers, you know, that number is gonna be extremely high in terms of just running these programs, because if we have this facility going and then also still using all of our parks at the same time, which is what we typically do, then we're gonna need more part-timers for that. We are looking towards down the road. Right now we have, one person who's in charge of all of our athletics, so that would potentially open up another maybe full-time position later down the road, to kind of split that up since our programs are growing so quickly.
And those are, again, more grant opportunities as well, because with each new program or with each new position, we do have the ability to look into grants for some of that.
Okay. That essentially was the point I was going to make, and number one, excellent presentation. We've heard rumblings about this project, and so it's glad to see a picture of it, and that's really good. Several years ago, the county did a real good job getting some grants for some neat things, one of which was the animal shelter, and put a lot of effort and energy in that, and then when it was done, somebody woke up and realized, oh, we kind of have to staff this now.
Hold on.
So that's just, again, and that's where I was going with that. There's got to be some realities. There'll be some staffing changes. So you're looking at budget increases, and all that becomes all the picture that we have to deal with too.
Yeah, there will be.
Summer camp program being one of the bigger ones, because it's going to expand.
Because we'd actually have that indoor
Have a real,
facility
be able
and
to
the
run
different spaces all under one roof and set up. We're at the semi-hybrid park, and then we transfer to the old gym over here when it rains, you know, that kind of thing. 'Cause
You're
right
also talking about utilities too, because you're talking about a fully conditioned
right.
facility here. So
And
all that
two,
just needs to be in the thought.
absolutely, yeah, for down the road. And two, though, with all of those things that all the increases that we're going to see, we will have increase in revenue as well. Because right now, you're charging the minimal fee to sign up for a sport and a minimal fee for not a half-done summer camp, but you know what I mean, like a very small, abbreviated version of summer camp. And I'm only able to charge $40 a year for my senior center membership, and we can't expand on any of that. So those things will double, and, you know, we will have a lot more revenue coming in from those memberships from everybody that's going to participate at the fitness center or the senior center or using a room. So, you know, it'll definitely offset a little bit.
That's good.
Thank you.
A lot of good thoughts.
Yeah.
Very good.
We appreciate y'all so much. Thank you for your questions and your attention, and if you need anything, please, you know where to find us.
Email.
Yes, email or whatever. Come by and see us, the stuff we've
Let's
got
show you
now,
what
and then you'll be like, oh, I get it.
And y'all will keep us informed of where you're at on all this.
Yes,
as you
after the
move.
meeting tomorrow, I'll send an email out, I'll send one to Todd and Christina right away, you'll probably be on the call, and, we'll keep you abreast of what's going on, and we appreciate y'all.
But given the opportunity, one last question, but given the opportunity, if you can secure the entire 44 acres, not only does it satisfy the needs for this building, it also gives our rec department a substantial area to expand in that's in a much more buildable place because it's on relatively flat ground.
Cross-country
Which
courses,
goes into
golf.
the potential for, expanding those, offering cross-country,
Do you wanna say
expanding
phase 2?
our soccer, and then our future phase 2 that we've talked about is our aquatic facility.
That's coming later,
Having
we
it
didn't want
in
to,
the pool.
because
Because
we
we do have,
have,
this high school does have a swim team, but they don't have anywhere to, they have one girl, and they didn't have any, she was state champ, so,
but hey, you know what, there's more coming. There's more coming, and that aquatic center is needed, so I'm going for that floor. We'll see.
that's our goal.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank y'all
Thank
so
y'all.
much,
Thank
we
y'all so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Now, Shelley, you're not leaving, and Alan, you're not leaving, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm good. Back down.
All right. Any other business involving guest groups or multiple visitors? Yeah. All right.
Hearing and action on zoning matters. Terry Scarborough is representing Pleasant Grove Baptist Church requesting rezone 1.5 acres. Mr. Canolis, you wanna step up?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Our first rezone request was, Mr. Terry Scarborough came before us, representing, Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, requesting to rezone 1.5 acres for the house from A2 to R1. Property is located on Diamond Hill Nice Road, map 30, parcel 68 in District 3. The vote of the Planning Commission was 6-0 to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I have a motion. Yeah, anybody here to speak in favor of? Anybody here to speak in opposition of this rezone request? Hearing none?
It had a size on it.
The size on the
portion that you expect them to come out.
What's left that the church was still on? How much property's left that the church was still?
The church has 13 acres.
13 acres?
Mr. Scarborough, you wanna come up and answer the questions?
You're welcome to, sir.
He has more information about that.
No,
I
that's
brought
fine.
forward tonight.
And I'm just asking this, and I guess this would be a question for zoning and planning and for the, our county attorney here too. It looks like the rest of the property is still zoned to A2.
Yes.
Is that something
Churches are allowed to A2.
they're allowed to?
Yes.
Even though it's
Churches are allowed to A2 zone. Places of worship. I don't have an ordinance book in front of me, I'm sure that's the case.
I guess
So that would not create a problem.
That would not create a problem. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
I have.
Actually,
My thoughts on it.
There's a federal law that says basically, as far as actual religious use of property, which the church would still be on the remaining property, zoning does not apply unless the county or city shows a compelling interest to apply that zoning regulation. So we generally don't look to the same rules unless, again, there's some compelling reason to do that.
Well, because it will, I guess my question would be because it will always be a cemetery there that takes up half the space. Is it appropriate for it to be an A2?
The church operates on that as well, though, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. So as long as there's actual worship services going on there, religious uses of the property, it doesn't really matter what classification it's in.
Okay. That's all I needed here. Thank you.
That bottom note. Okay, so we just sustain that one. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve or deny this rezone.
Make a motion it be approved.
Second motion.
A motion by Mr. Adams, a second by Mr. Chandler. Any discussion? Hearing none. Derek?
Yes.
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 And Mr. Kirk sustained for the fact that he was kin. Thank you, sir. Motion carries. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, our next rezone request was from Rule, and I hope I don't mess his name up, Guerrara, is requesting to rezone 3.14 acre property from RR to R1 to allow another home site so he can have his mother there. The property is located on Cliff Griffith Road in District 2. The zoning commission voted 6-0 to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Guerrero, are you here? All right. Is anyone here to speak in favor of Mr. Guerrero? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone have? All right. You said 6-0?
Yes.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to approve or deny Mr. Raul Guerrero's request for rezone.
The reason request be approved is presented.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve by Mr. Chandler, second by Mr. Kurt. Any discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none. Dennis?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Motion carried.
Okay. The next rezone request, Mr. Travis Legg is requesting a variance on his 97.28 acre property. He would like to come closer to the property line. He is asking for a variance to build a 6-poultry house on his property. He cannot meet the 300 feet setback. He can only meet 200. The property is located on map 80, parcel 50, on Transco Road in District 4. The Planning Commission voted to deny by a vote of 5-1.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone here in favor of, like to speak in favor of Mr. Legg's request? Go ahead. You can step up, please, if you don't mind. Give us your name and address for the record, because we have so many people here.
Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Paul Simmons. I live at 3675 Highway 191. I live approximately a mile cross-country from Travis's proposed poultry operation. My brother and I used to have a poultry operation, which we sold about 2 years ago. Just wanted to point out that some might say he has a 97-acre property and he can't find enough room to build on, which you have to take into consideration that every 1,000 feet of property line, you lose 600,000 feet of buildable area. And so his property is not square, so some places of it, the setbacks will almost cross one another on the property. He also has a 3-phase power line that crosses the property and a colonial transmission line that crosses the property. So you have those obstacles to have to work around, and then also you have geological obstacles. You have a creek, springs, and some places, you know, the land just don't particularly lay right to build on. Like Mr. Adams said about the property that they're looking at purchasing at the rec center. You know, your best buildable property is good agricultural land. If you've got flat land that's suitable to farm, it's also the most suitable land to build on. One other thing, the poultry houses there will bring in more tax money for the county. They don't require any more schools, don't require any more sheriff's departments. I don't think the chickens will complain about the racket from the pump station, which we've lived there for the last 60 years, and you know, you do hear it, and sometimes they do blow down. Sometimes they blow off enough gas over there to run those 12 chicken houses for a year, which they don't have anyway. And they didn't have a way to capture it, but now they have a line that runs to Bowman. They can capture some of that gas instead of wasting it. But I'd like to see you to vote in favor of the variance. No other place in the county would be as suitable as that. It's well off the Transco Road. You can't even see the poultry houses from Transco Road. It's in timber around it, which I guess if you've been to the site, you did. But I'd just like to see you vote in favor of his variance.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Travis, come on.
Still in a boot.
Yeah, no crutches,
Just some symphony notes.
I'm improving. All right, first of all, I'm a little more prepared tonight than I was at planning and zoning, and I guess I realized some of the questions they were gonna have for me. I am concerned with the way planning and zoning did go about voting on it. I don't feel like all the members really were aware that this was just put in the ordinances, in August, 2 months ago. And I'm just not sure that they were all aware of that, or if they're aware of the standards of the ordinance that they should have followed, looking at it. The only reason that was really stated for denying the variance was that, if it was,
Hang on.
no, you're getting, the only
Work session,
sorry
we're allowed
about
to do
that.
that.
No problem at all. The only real reason I heard of denying the variance was they felt like if they did approve it, that they would, might have to approve all the future variance requests. And, I just think the reason the variance request was placed in the zoning ordinance with conditions to be met was to look at each individual case and, see if it meets the conditions and vote accordingly. But I feel like my request meets the criteria for a hardship variance. It says in the ordinance that, the standards for hardship variance approval was there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property in question because of its size, shape, or topography. B, the application of this zoning ordinance to this particular piece of property would create an unnecessary hardship. C, such conditions are peculiar to the particular piece of property involved. And D, relief, if granted, would not cause substantial detriment to the public good or impair the purposes and intent of this ordinance. And I feel like my request meets all those conditions. In August of 2020, I bought, it's actually 107 acres because there's 2 more tracts there with it. Looking at the property, the houses would fit in there and meet the 300-foot setbacks. Property did have a drainage ditch going through it. We referred to that drainage ditch as a creek. I know when we were at the planning and zoning, it's brought up as a creek, and if you look on the site plans, the surveyor labeled it a creek, but it's actually a drainage ditch. And the houses were going to be real close to that drainage ditch, but it could have been rerouted to route the water away from it. So originally the houses would fit in there when I bought the property. Early 2021, we started clearing the land, and then the graders came in early summer of this year. And after the graders got in and the land was cleared, we got in there and met and realized that there was flowing water in that drainage ditch. So there were some active springs in there, which then at that point, we really couldn't get as close as we thought to that drainage ditch. So after meeting with them, it was decided that we'd be a lot better off to shift the houses over 100 feet. At this point, I went to planning and zoning to see what my options were, and I found out that the variance request ordinance was on the agenda for the upcoming meetings. So I also met with Chris Roach at this time, and he pulled up on the computer and showed kind of how the water laid under the ground on the property, and over on that side it showed a lot of water, but by shifting them over 100 feet, it showed that it'd be a lot better spot to build. So at this point, I've got over $500,000 invested in this property. I'd never get my money out of it by selling it at this point. So I decided to go ahead and ask for a variance request, and and proceed that way. One thing planning and zoning was asking me is why couldn't I just build 5 houses and not 6? I mean, I do have a lot of reasons, but the main reason is, everybody knows building materials went skyrocketed this year, and building 5 houses at this point would just not cash flow. The chicken company, they want a 6-house farm. I mean, it makes more sense on feed delivery and stuff like that, but for me, it's the cash flow. I mean, 5 houses are just not going to cash flow at this point. There's a lot of things to consider on this land, building these houses. One thing is, it does meet the setbacks on every side of the farm except for one side. And on this 107 acres, this was the only spot that it would have met the 300-foot setbacks if I hadn't had to shift them over. And like I said, I'm only asking for a variance on the one side, and that would be at 200 feet. And only the front half of the house would actually be affected. The back half of the house would meet the 300-foot requirement. So it's a 600-foot long house, about 300 foot meets it. The front 300 foot would be the only area that would be 200 foot from the property line. The 3 closest residential houses to this farm, or to the poultry houses themselves, where the minimum requirement is 400 foot, the 3 closest houses are 1,210 foot, 1,480 foot, and 1,620 foot away. The farm can't be visibly seen from any public roads. Trees buffer all 4 sides of the poultry houses. And so far there's been no complaints from anybody. Every neighboring property owner received letters from planning and zoning telling about this variance request, and nobody showed up to speak against it. But most important, the property that the variance affects, the ordinance doesn't say anything about getting in touch with the property owner, but I tracked down a phone number finally and got in touch with him. And he met me out there Saturday, and he was perfectly fine with me building 200 foot from the property line. All he's got out there now is cows. It's a cow pasture. He doesn't have, there's no buildings or residents on the land. So I asked him yesterday if he could send me an email stating that he is okay with it, even though the ordinance doesn't ask for anything like that. All he did send me a text, and I just printed it out. I don't know if that do any good for anybody, but I asked him if he'd send an email stating that he is fine with me building 200 foot from the property line, and he sent me a text and said it's fine, you can build 200 foot from my property line, no problem, thanks for letting me know. So that's,
Well, you referenced Mr. Rhodes, so I'm gonna ask him to come up.
Okay. Yep, that'd be great.
Please.
Stand up.
He's tired of standing, he got bum.
And I do have a plat here that you can see, or he does too, bro, that you can see, how the only spot that,
Is yours the 6-hour plan?
yeah.
Okay, this is the 5 foot that I approved. I mean the 5.
Okay.
Now, for the record, Christopher, what is that program you use?
Web soil survey put out by the USDA. It's a reference ground penetrating radar map. It lets me find out what the soil type is, where the water table is, the drainage, the slope, its applicability for burial across the board, and how its absorption rate will be. Everything we used to send off to the University of Georgia for soil sampling, I can do with a satellite sitting in the office.
That's good enough.
So I do that. I don't know what y'all if y'all have questions or.
Well, he just he referenced it, you came out and checked the soil, and
Oh, yeah, I've been
trying to
out
verify.
several times, to the property and measured it. And what you thought was the drainage is actually waters of the state. There's a trough at the beginning of the property.
Right.
That catches rainwater in the local springs, and it actually comes down, there's a spring head.
Right.
Where
Yeah.
your house one is.
Yeah.
That'd be right off that western
Right,
corner right there. And it actually flows down into it, so, even though everything said it was a trough and a creek, it's actually waters of the state. So him volunteering to just come on up did us all a wonderful favor, just starting out, to where we didn't have an EPD, investiture into this, especially with the flume and the pump station and everything with their drainage. He's moved himself away from that. And in this, so doing, the underground water table that also sits at the front of the property, he's moved himself away from that to where if there was leakage from litter, mass death, mortality that they had to put in the ground, anything of that nature, he's out of it, and that keeps waters of the state and our county out of a hard place. I'm trying to think about a politically correct way of saying up the creek.
It actually was by your recommendation that the grading moved uphill.
Yes, sir. And that kept him safe. They worked with their erosion control program. We're doing a great job over there. Right now, you do have to cross the three-phase and the pipeline.
Yeah.
To get over there, and like he was saying, it's not even the whole house. When I measured it, I came up with 185 feet.
Yeah, I didn't know for sure. I was just looking at the picture.
Between 2 and 250. It's not even going all the way to the full 200 in most places. So we're talking about 1/8 of a house being within a variance with no surrounding issues. And the layout of his property prevents him, not just because of our setbacks as a county, but also because of that three-phase power line and the pipeline. Even though it's, I just say 100 acres for a round number.
Right.
Even though it's 100 acres and you think, shoot, we can fit 6 houses in there the way that it falls, there's no way else to fit them in there. And like you were saying.
And it's hard to find A1 land in Madison County that will fit, you know, I mean, you gotta have a square piece of land to fit, you know, you meet your 300-foot setbacks to build a farm.
It's not visible. He's got wind buffers all the way around. The way they've managed to do the grading, even with the slope, with the underwater aquifer system, the way it sits at the front, and waters of the state, Mr. Legg did put in a lot of work to make sure that it fit appropriately. And I can vouchsafe from my experience, poultry companies do not want to put that odd house in there. They want to build in pairs.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And that landowner, he was real impressed. He was, I mean, he liked the looks of the farm, and he was glad that, you know, we were doing this, so.
Can I just see that, Charlie?
Yeah, and I know it's not much, but
I understand.
I don't even know if he had, you know, really means to send an email to me, so.
Canal Smith, while Brian's looking at that, might I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Then zoning and planning, the committee's objection is just to the 200 foot instead of the 300 foot, not that any property owners have complained, or there's no issues with the adjacent property owner. It's strictly, he can't abide by, the rule that's in place right now.
That is correct. Nobody showed up to object to it. So, you know, we have a guidelines to go by.
Yes.
And they can't meet the 300-foot setback. Now, the biggest question, Mr. Legg said he didn't know if the planning and zoning really understood the variance. We understood the variance because we wrote it. And we understood the variance. But one of the things that came to light in that meeting was, and I asked Mr. Legg this question, you applied for 5 houses to begin with, and then all of a sudden,
now I applied for 6.
Okay. was my understanding.
I applied for 6, but since the one house didn't meet the setback, I went ahead and got a building permit for 5, so we could go, I already had people out there.
You were actually instructed to do that.
Yes.
By Ms. Fortson.
Yes.
She said you
Miss
could start
Linda
the
told
building
me,
with 5.
told me you can go ahead and get a building permit for the 5, do your variance request, and then come back and get a building permit for the 6th one. But no, I mean, as you can see, there's 6 houses on this. I mean, this is, you know, this is a complete engineered site plan here that we have to get. There's 6 houses on it, on the site plan. So that's originally what was planned on here. It wasn't like I was just trying to fit them up.
But anyway, you know, that was the question was, you know, why did you get a building permit for 5 versus 6 if you really wanted 6 to begin with? But, as Mr. Legg admitted, there was a lot of hard questions asked. We talked about a lot of things. To support the planning and zoning, we went into depth as to what we wanted to know. And after all of the discussion, it was 5-1 to deny. But that's actually up to the commissioners. That's why we encourage Mr. Legg to show up tonight.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Due
you,
diligence
Thank you,
on both. Exactly.
Travis, you talk about moving up the hill and it'll be wooded around all 4 sides. Is it still your intent to leave it that way? I mean, I don't want to come back in a year and.
No,
It'd be clear.
No, everything is, like it's gonna be. In fact, on, 2 sides, the wooded buffers on the other properties too. So, on the side we're talking about getting a variance for, it's got a tree line that's on the neighbors.
How much on your side is treed?
On that side, there's none treed. That was already cleared down that side. There was just one line of trees separating the 2 properties. It's a fence line, and there's a line of mature trees on it, so. But no, I'm done clearing. We've already cleared everything we'll be clearing on. And you can't build anything else because the drainage ditch and then the way the land lays.
Well, you might not build nothing, but you could delete the trees and, I mean, you could convert the land to other purpose, but I'm trying to.
No, I'm not, no plans to do any more clearing. We're done.
Any more questions for Mr. Legg? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve or deny Mr. Legg's rezone.
I don't think we finished the public hearing. Is there anybody against?
Anybody want
Oh, I thought we did that at the beginning.
Did we do that already? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I missed it if we did.
I just spoke for it.
You spoke for it?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I asked anybody opposed.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I thought we'd done that too. All right, anybody here speaking opposition to Mr. Legg? Hearing none, we'll close the public session. Ask for a motion to approve or deny.
After visiting out there and then doing a lot of research and also, being involved with it and understanding where Travis, the whole situation, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance or exception, I guess is actually what it is, the exception, but with one caveat, and that would be that on that line where that you would be getting only the 200 foot,
Right.
that we put the additional landscaping, just like what you would need to put at the back of the chicken houses where the exhaust fans are, to put that across there also. It's just an additional.
Put more trees to buffer.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
So that's the motion I'm making, to approve the exception with that caveat.
Second motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, gentlemen?
Chris, you'll monitor the additional landscaping needs?
I can, yes, sir, and I can help you get the right trees,
Hey, that'd be
that sort of stuff. I can work with what's best for that, tropus and land over there, no trouble. If y'all would want that to be part of it.
Just a couple of things, and I'm frustrated on behalf of the planning and zoning, because there's two pieces of information that we had access to tonight that they did not have. I sat through their public hearing, that they should have had that information. One of it, the view from the offended property owner, and that just wasn't available at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But that's very important for us to know. Y'all did not have that piece of information, and that's just something that might consider. Previously, when there was a variance allowance in the ordinance, that was one of the criteria, that there had to be a signed document from the offended property owner, and it might be good to look at adding that into our variance. The other thing that y'all should have been well aware of is the activity that Mr. Roach had in this all along. When you look at how the variance criteria written in the ordinance, that only, in my mind, the only part of it that's in question is where lies the cause for creating the need for this variance. Up until Mr. Roach's information, there probably is some room for debate there. Once that information is out there and known, then that goes away. And the other thing for us to realize is that 300 feet is not a magic number. Sounds don't stop at 300 feet. I mean, there's not a sign up there, lights from feed trucks, noise from forklifts, that doesn't stop at 300 feet. That 300 feet is just a recognition that there's some folks that don't understand what goes on there, and a recognition that just making sure we're being good neighbors, we're going to say that we're going to do our best to be 300. We're going to be 300 feet from the property line, if at all possible. But we even have, in my mind, you wonder about the possibility of being government takings when you require that degree of setback, and you start multiplying that all the way around that property. That is a chunk of land. If that were mine, I'd say, wait a minute. So anyway, I feel very badly for planning and zoning that they didn't have all the information that we have tonight. In my mind, it's a very, I think it needs to be a very, very rare occurrence that we disagree with planning and zoning. And in order for that to occur like it should, y'all got to have the same information we have.
And I agree with that totally also.
And just to add to that, Mr. Rhodes, you were actually out of town in class when they had that meeting. That's why he wasn't here. But Ms. Fortson had that information. We discussed this several times prior to, because there was a lot of questions about how does this work, what is this wetland. So you fully informed him even though he wasn't present. Right. Not you, Ms. Canolas. You may not have got that information. It was the other department, but I'm sorry.
I'll be anywhere on request. Y'all just tell me where.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to stress also, I very much appreciate the planning and zoning, and also, I've talked to the planning and zoning person in my district, and we understand, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the way that you're looking after the county, and by what you did, I guess it caused us to go back and do some more investigation, but it turns out well, I think, for everyone. So, none of this was for naught or whatever. So I think it's very good.
All right, so I have a motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I have a motion. Mr. Kirk, a second by Mr. Chandler, and it's on.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Zachary Hightower. So, Mike, we're probably going to have some input.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Canola.
Zachary Hightower was requesting a conditional use for his agricultural business so that he can enlarge the building. Property is located on map 2, parcel 40 on Nice Commerce Road in District 1. Mr. Hightower nor a representative for Mr. Hightower was present at the public hearing. According to the zoning book, if an applicant does not show up at the first public meeting, that is a withdrawal. And that applicant has to wait 60 days before he can reapply. So therefore, the planning and zoning did not take up the request.
Okay, and you said that's 60 days?
60 days.
Mr. Hightower, any particular reason maybe we didn't make that meeting?
Working 80, 90 hours a week, short on hands, I mean, run the business, run the farm, family, fix problems.
Mike, is that what you're doing, verifying that he had to be present?
Well, actually, I did that a little earlier. So, in Article 14 of the zoning ordinance, talking about rezonings, it says that if the applicant doesn't show at Planning and Zoning Commission, it's considered withdrawal. However, conditional use permits have their own procedures in section 11.3 to 11.5, and that is not repeated there. So there's an argument at least to be made that a no-show for a conditional use application is not a withdrawal.
So I visited Ms. Fortune's office the day after the vote, just to find out how everything went, and she said that, that you did not show up and that it would be 60 days before you could be back on. I was under the impression that was for zoning matter only. I thought conditional use, you did not have to be present. She made it clear to me that you did have to be present, but now that you've read it, so I was under the impression like you just read.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I hadn't heard from anybody about it, but I looked at it right before the meeting started, and that's the way I read it.
So with that being said, and because the ad was run in the paper, was there any opposition there in favor of, opposition of, or you just
No, sir, we did
didn't
not
even ask?
We did not take it up simply because
Gotcha.
he wasn't there.
I got you, okay.
And just to make it clear, Ms. Fortune probably told you 6 months. That was wrong.
Yes,
So I went back and looked it up. It's 60 days. It's not 6 months.
that's correct.
You know, that's just, I don't know where it came from, where the 6 months came from, but it wasn't 6 months. But in my investigation, you know, I saw where it said it was withdrawal, but, you know, I did not go as deep as Mr. Pruitt. So, that's why we made the decision that we made.
At the meeting, Mr. Pruitt, the topic was announced. We're here to do Zachary Hightower. He's not here, and it stopped. So it was introduced at the meeting, if not,
Yeah.
nobody was there anyway.
Well, and I guess that brings the question of what's appropriate now, because it, you know, according to the ordinance, again, back in 11.5, that does deal with conditional use permits, it says that planning and zoning is supposed to hear it and vote on it. So does that mean that the fact that they didn't do that, does that preclude the Board of Commissioners from acting on it? I can tell you in the zoning context at least, there's some case law going back a pretty good ways now that suggests that so long as you comply with state zoning procedures law, it doesn't matter if there's some additional requirements in your ordinance that's not a requirement of state law, and the P&Z hearing is one of those. That failure to do that does not preclude you from going ahead and acting as long as you do the minimum. So I guess what I'm coming to is I would come down on the side of you could probably go ahead and hold your public hearing tonight and vote on it. The problem with that is, of course, you know, people who may have shown up to the P&Z meeting didn't show up tonight. So it leaves us in a little bit of a quandary.
There were none there.
Yeah, so there wasn't any there, and I will take the heat on this if need be. I don't feel like the Planning and Zoning Board done anything wrong. I think this is brand new evidence. I just had an inkling from being on the board for a few years that's how it worked, but I feel like because of the time frame, because of what we've asked, and because this is not a rezone, this is a conditional use, I would ask to make that motion tonight to approve or deny.
Right. May I say something, Friday? You
Yes, sir.
making that question, and that's fine, because we know that we're a recommending body on it. But, from being the chair of the planning and zoning, I feel like that if you have something of that nature, that's important, that you don't show up, then I believe that you should have to pay the consequences.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, if the board does wish to go ahead tonight, we do still need to hold that public hearing at this level.
Okay.
If there is anyone here to speak either in favor or against.
That'd be fine. So, anybody here to speak in favor of Mr. Zachary Hightower's conditional use request? Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I do not personally know Mr. Hightower, but he's involved in poultry agriculture. I was involved in it for 10 years. I know he's got a sizable investment in it. He's been doing this for a long time, my understanding, at this location. So I would urge the board to vote in favor of his conditional use permit to let him continue his business.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Anyone else?
I don't know him personally at all, but just from observing this, I don't think that him not being able to make it because he's making an 80 or 90 hour week should count against him right now.
I'm sorry.
What's your name, sir?
Your name and address, please.
Daniel James Matheny at 625 Hope Drive, Concord, Georgia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, is there anybody here to speak in opposition of it? Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna really say I'm in opposition, but I do have some questions.
Sure.
This seems like it's just a repeat. It's a cycle that's been with this thing, and he agrees with me. Zach and I talk, and it seems like we're just going around in circles with this whole thing, and it needs to be resolved one way or the other. I do have some questions, though. I'd like to know really what the grandfathered in policy is for this county or the state. Anybody have an answer?
Respond?
I'll be more than happy to look it up and email it to you tomorrow. I know it changes.
Well, let me, so.
There's several steps to it, but go ahead.
So with the term grandfather is a colloquial term, not the legal term. The legal term is existing non-conforming use. So if you have a use that is lawful and then the county zoning ordinance changes to say that now that use is no longer lawful, you had an existing non-conforming use, you have vested rights by your investment in setting up that use and continuing it at that location, and the government can't take that away from you.
Okay, what about as long as you own that property or business? What about if it changes ownership?
Change of ownership generally does not have any impact on it.
So that means that building
is
is grandfathered in from here on. Is that true?
Now, I don't know the details of this, but if there's an existing non-conforming use of property in Madison County, a change of ownership does not make the use suddenly unlawful.
Well,
it's still the use that's
and this business hasn't been in use really for, I'm gonna say 8 to 10 years, and the building burned back 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a dead building for years. Zach and I talked, we ain't got nothing against each other, and I told him to his face, if I got a choice, you being here or not, the not is what I say, because waking up at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning ain't good. I'll tell you. And if you don't believe it, I'll call you boys some mornings at 4:30. And I know it ain't nothing Zach can control because that's his business, But I think you got a system here that you need to work on. I swear. I don't know if it's in zoning or what it is, but something, because
he's been around and around this thing for several times, and the neighbors, you know, they keep wondering what's gonna happen. And, I will say this, I think if half the effort was put into the neighborhood as it was getting this thing approved. And I'm just being upfront with you about it, you know. But I think we've been kinda shortchanged, really, as far as the neighborhood goes.
Understand?
Oh, you need my name and
Yes, sir.
address?
Just for the record.
Robert Davis,
Thank you.
363 Cody Fowler Road. I'm about 150 feet from the building, I guess, don't you?
You're the White House?
Yeah,
The White House.
yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing, open special session. As per motion to approve or deny, Mr. Hightower.
Chairman, I recommend we approve this conditional use permit as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Chandler and a second by Mr. Doster. Any discussion, gentlemen?
I have some, and thank you very much for being here today, and, this whole incident, in addition to being a nuisance for Zach, has been an embarrassment to us. Initially, well, initially when it was presented, it was, the request was a request to go to a business zone.
Yeah.
And we unanimously turned that down, and the reason is whenever you go to a business zone, there's a whole, if you go through the ordinance, a whole list of things that could occur in a business zone. Right. And we felt like that was not appropriate there. It was recalled in an atypical manner, not an illegal manner, but atypical manner. We came back and that kind of sort of blindsided us, and that was an unnecessary step that shouldn't happen. The opportunity for this to be a conditional use was one of those things that was added back in August as well. So the opportunity, and what that does for the neighborhood, it allows Zach to operate his business like he wants to, but that is very specific. The neighbors know that then this property is specific for that use. It's not gonna be wide open for other things that can occur in a business zone. So that's the difference between the conditional use and then just the request to rezone. So this grants Zach what he needs, and at the same time provides additional protections or assurances for the neighbors. But yes, this is, we got some things we need to improve on. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Any other discussion, gentlemen?
Concur with what Mr. Chandler said.
I think we all agree.
Mr. Kirk?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Apologies again.
I'm glad I didn't hear about that one.
We're not going out here.
Check that from that.
Yeah.
I think, in closing this out though, I think we also need to thank the zoning and planning committee for the time that they put into this.
Absolutely. And
their understanding of our variances and what's going on. And there's something, here again, I want to say it, again, there's something disjointed here. And at some point, we're gonna have to address it.
Well, I think it's reiterates the need, you know, we've asked Mark to, you know, to the developer or guide us and possibly for some training for, you know, all boards and bodies and all organizations, I think, I think that would go a long way in trying to clarify some of the responsibilities and how we interact, and then what holes and gaps that we may have, just from somebody coming in or providing that training, and people realize, oh, wait a minute, we hadn't had that, or we don't know how to deal with that. So I think it just reiterates some of those things that we've expressed in the past.
Included in that, Mike's, your comments to help us clarify this also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And this might be one of those areas that we need to go back and make it clear in the ordinance. So.
Yeah, it could be another area. I mean, Chairman and I talk about that pretty often.
And this is just a thought. This is a work session. Hang on one second, bud. I'll get you.
Canolas, we're
Yes.
friends. You've done a fine job. Keep your seat.
Okay.
You've done a really good job. And your board has. I think there was a lot of due diligence done tonight.
Absolutely.
I think the gap is that can be resolved quickly would be for us to ask Mr. Pruitt to sit in on the next few zoning matters, and that way he could catch them at the front end instead of catching at the back end, Mr. Scott. And that's not by any means in any disrespect to the board, as much as I think he would serve you better justice at that point before we get to this point and have to go against you when we do not want to do that. We want to be a unified board, unified government, and we want to take the recommendation from planning and zoning very seriously. And I think if Mike would have been present in the zoning meetings, he could have caught a couple of these issues and led you with better advice.
Okay. Well, I want to comment.
Yes.
I think one of the things that will help this situation is, and I agree with the gentleman, at some point, we need to address grandfather. I don't know how long grandfather lives, but grandfather changes. At some point, we must address how long or how grandfather is missing. If it don't, you're gonna have these same problems over and over and over again.
Linda and I have talked at one point in the ordinance, and I think this is a perfectly defensible position. There was provision that if the use were discontinued for 12 months or more, it ceased to have that vested rights, that grandfather status. At some point, that disappeared from the ordinance. It might be a good idea to put that one back in, or something similar.
That's a little too short, but.
Yeah, there was, and I couldn't answer the guy's question, there's several steps to the grandfather class. It's no different than a chicken house and want to rebuild it back 20 years later. It says if you put it in the exact footprint, but if you move it over 6 foot, it disqualifies.
Right.
So it is hairy.
There also at one time was an allowance, say in poultry houses, for example, if you had an existing non-conforming house that's destroyed by fire or whatever, and the company's specs require it to be larger, then you are allowed to increase you were allowed at one time to increase it based on the company's specs.
Mr. Rhodes, you have something?
We just wanted to say, Ms. Teresa and myself as department heads down there wanted to be here to make sure we could answer and further look at whatever y'all needed to this evening, to try and help close up any gaps that were there, and then the abandonment of grandfather, just like an abandonment of an easement. In the time frame, we've actually talked about that in the office as far as the grandfathers go, what that time frame should be, because we're coming into it with campers and other things as well, and how we're handling that. Sorry.
I think it would be safe to say though that 12 months for commercial property, that's an extremely very short window of opportunity right there. I mean, in our Matico Park, I know of 2 buildings that have sat down there empty for one until this year for at least 3 years, and another down there for almost 5. So we need to be careful about what we establish there.
Mr. Adams, that would be looking directly towards commercial property instead of, say, A1 or residential or rural.
Well, there are multiple issues here. This property should have never been sold and not rezoned from what it was and allowed to remain an A2.
Yes, correct.
So there's, I mean, this was a perfect storm for us to all use as a learning experience.
Agreed.
And after 4 months, I'm ready to go to another chapter.
I think we all
want
next grade or something.
I want to make one statement that I think is important here. I think we've had 2 instances tonight where we got some communication breakdowns too, gaps. And we need to figure out our process and get those gaps covered. You know what I'm saying? Because, y'all not getting all the information that some folks have and all that kind of stuff. We need to make this a cohesive process. You know what I'm saying? So I think in all areas we need to sit down and between the departments, make sure this is a process, that everybody that's got a piece of it is involved with it so that when it goes to P and Z, they have all the information, you know? And I think that we have lacked, especially in these two cases, really pointed out, so.
And if I can add one thing before the chairman tells us to
Go ahead.
move on. But, I'm happy to go to P and Z meetings if the board would like me to. But, you know, Mr. Kirk's comment makes the point, had I been at the P and Z meeting for Mr. Legg, I would not have heard anything, I still wouldn't have heard
Right,
it.
that's right. That was an information issue.
So, a more efficient use of my time might be if I could be in the loop of information that's put together before even P and Z hears.
That's right.
Agreed.
So you need to be part of the process.
Right.
Yeah, especially on the controversial ones. And, not necessarily controversial, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Both of what we heard tonight are brand new from August.
Right.
I mean, there's not an old history of understanding how to do this. This was just voted on, so.
You got another one coming tomorrow.
Huh?
There's nothing, planning zone, gonna hear another one tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I do think we're headed the right direction. I truly do. So I don't want it to come across so negative as that. Any new amendments to the zoning ordinance?
No.
No. Well, before you leave, thank you. And you tell your board, thank you. New business, discuss adopting Bluestone Hills Lane. So gentlemen, we're doing this a little bit different, and I'll tell you why. Prior to adopting a road, used to that people would come in here and they would ask you to adopt a road, and we would deliberate about adoption, not adoption, and it could get very heated and very convoluted quickly. So, and then it may not even follow through, because the 12 people or the 15 people that live on that road decide, one of them decides he don't want it, and all of the arguing and the fussing and the convolutedness goes away because they didn't sign all the documents. So what I requested is, if you ask us to adopt a road, I need all the signatures prior to, and that lets me know you are vested in that decision. So if this board, so if it does become complicated, we at least know you're not gonna back out in the end. So that's why we've changed it up. And I'm here tonight to tell you that, like Bluestone Hill Lanes, and Alan, very familiar with it. When the property owners come to us, we said, get all the documents signed, cross all your T's and your I's, and then bring it to the Board of Commissioners. So that way we don't waste everybody's time. And this was done. Every homeowner has looked at this piece of property, has requested this piece of property be deeded over to the county. Myself and Alan has looked at it. Believe it or not, this road is probably one of the better ones to adopt because the widths are already there, the ditches are already there, everything is there except for the road is just awful. And I was going to discuss that later down at the bottom, and I should have done it in the chairman's report, but we're having a problem with private drives that EMS cannot pass. And speaking with some of the EMS, Bobby was firsthand the other day, and two paramedics is like, if you go to a heart attack patient and we have to park at the top of the hill and walk down the driveway, and then you find out that they're unconscious and it's raining, then we got to carry them up the driveway because we can't get down the driveway. So this is a topic that we'll eventually get into, but Bluestone Hills Lane that's exactly how that come to be. Was the property owner at the very end couldn't get an ambulance down to his house. So they've signed all the documents. This is not up for vote tonight. This is just discussion on this tonight. And myself or Alan will be more than happy to answer any other questions y'all may have on this.
I've seen this was platted, or this plat was approved by the clerk of court in 1988. Where does that put us relative to the county rules for adopting the road?
So if any property changed hands, but it would have to be updated, and it has been. There's another road, I forgot the one just recently, where I think everybody signed the signatures in '94, but some of the property got sold off, so they had to go back to the property owners to get the new witness signed signatures up to date.
My question is based on the road itself.
Okay.
At some point, we adopted an ordinance that the roads has to be to a certain spec before the county will take them. Where was this being dated in '88? Where is that road issue based on that county requirement?
Well, so that would be the subdivision regulations, which were prior to zoning. Mr. Scott just stepped out. I don't remember. It was sometime in the late 80s, as I recall. So I don't know which side of the line 88 was on this. But for it to be approved for recording, I have to assume that at that time, unlike the subdivision regs now, you could have this many lots on a private drive.
We brought this to the board because we have Tracy Patrick sent me an email saying that she wanted to present it to come to the board for consideration. It was already had met all the requirements and they had received all the deeds.
And this was a 60-foot right-of-ways.
Correct.
So you've got right-of-way deeds signed by all the property owners?
Yes.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
Well, my question would be, depending on where it falls, it could potentially be our responsibility, or it could be the responsibility of Olive Branch Land and Timber Company.
Right. I assume it is the former and not the latter, because if it were the latter, this plat shouldn't have been approved for recording in the first place.
I just want to make sure that.
Yeah.
I
That I don't remember that date. Yeah, I know.
Mike, are you looking for when they adopted planning and zoning?
Well, what I have been told is, now all this predates me, but I know from reading the zoning ordinance that it was first adopted in 1994. I don't know when the subdivision regulations were first implemented. I am told, or have been told over the years, it was sometime prior to 1994.
89.
89?
89 is when building inspection and, the subdivision started coming in, and I enforce this stuff.
Okay. So that answers your question.
So this is prior to.
So this is prior.
That'd be the county's job.
As always, thank you, sir.
What's that?
As always, thank you.
I'm here at the dictionary.
Nothing like communication, right?
That's right.
We will be voting over it.
Yeah.
You could edit it.
Discuss updating, or any more questions on Blue Tone Hill before I move on?
How many of these are out there? I mean, it seems like every 2 or 3 months, we're being asked to adopt a road, and somebody, whether it's this one, or if it's one that's got 4 houses on it, it's the same argument.
Yep.
And sooner or later, it's, somebody chose to either build or buy on a lot that was not, or if they got a 1,000-foot private driveway and the hospital or the ambulance can't get down. I mean, I don't wanna sound, cold, but somewhere there's got to be some personal responsibility for that, or blanket, here we go, we're just gonna have to adopt something every day, and then next thing you know, they're gonna call next week and say, it's your road, where's the rock on it? Like, you come scrape my road, it's your road today.
A couple of years ago, there was
That's the reason for my question.
There was 140 private drives, roughly about 40-something miles, I think, when we figured that up, that we actually have in the county that's actually private drives. Not counting driveways. That could have be 2 or 3. This was all private drives that we have in the county and everything else, but I think it was 43 miles, I want to say, those 140 actually added up too. And that was a couple years ago when we did that total.
That makes you feel better.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong, so, and I'm not.
Right. Well, I think we need to put some ordinances in play, literally, that says that we're not gonna, you build a new set of houses like we just saw Friday in the reserve, and they gravelled it. I wouldn't accept it.
Right.
Until that road's paved, I wouldn't accept it.
You can't now. I mean, there's a requirement now
That's
that
correct.
has to be up to.
But we need to put it in place the same as the city does. The city says if you build something, you pave the parking lot. There is no gravel. And we're gonna have to get to that. And, or for the 40 that we have out there, drives, we're gonna have to set a standard and say, look, if this 1 mile serves 3 houses, that's your 1 mile. But if that quarter mile serves 12, you've reached a cutoff that says we're gonna have to take it up. And the reason is I don't know, we gotta be able to get to them. We got roads, and I was gonna state it tonight, was if your driveway is not 14 foot wide and 14 foot tall, we can't get a fire truck to you.
That's right.
But we're still obligated to get that fire truck to you, but we're gonna tear up $30,000 worth of fire truck to put your fire out. So which is better, for us to maintain that 14-foot opening for a fire truck to get through, or just pay for the trucks every time to get them tore up? So we're on a double-edged sword, and we're trying to make the best out of it, but I agree, we need to put some ordinances in place that'll protect the future from having any more of these kind of roads.
We basically, in a way, history repeated itself when we approved the program on Kincaid Cemetery Road. 'Cause after all the discussion, and the reason I drove through there is I used to deer hunt down there. We talked about the roads that were in place, and that they were up to county standard and this and that. Well, if they are, that would explain why we got so many roads with pine trees this big around growing up in them, 'cause those two do. And where does
Chairman,
it
you
end?
wanna do 11 now, or
Huh?
you wanna do number 11 now, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna discuss it, throw it out there, that I don't know what we wanna do about it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question, but at some point, we're gonna have to address it.
You know, we just had 3 years ago, right here in Danielsville, y'all may know the gentleman, Mr. Owens, had a shop burned down, Danielsville responded. You can't get a Volkswagen down the driveway, but they took that fire truck in there, because that shop was 12 feet from the wood structured house, literally wood sided house, and he would've lost it all, but instead they drove the truck down it, and it tore the truck all to pieces. Yeah, it's a private drive, we can't make him cut it, but when do we have to cut off services too?
Well, yeah.
The liability of an EMT carrying up a 200-pound guy that had a heart attack up a muddy dirt road and it raining because they can't get the truck to him, when does that become our priority? I don't know the answer to it, I'm just throwing it out there, guys.
And a question that hasn't been asked tonight, but has been asked many times over the last 20 years, you know, well, can we just go out there and improve the private drive? No, there's a state statute that says it's a misdemeanor to spend public
Correct.
funds on
Correct.
private property, so.
Is that, can we require private drives to be certain standards?
For the future,
For the
yes. not for
future,
the
yeah.
Yeah, I
present.
mean,
But, yeah.
because we haven't done it, we can't. But anything in the future, do we have?
Oh, we have that, yeah. That's what I said, that's what Mr. Chandler and I were talking about, that if that plat would not have been recorded in 1990, because you can't have that many
What is the
lots.
standard now?
No more than four. Yeah.
The one I'm concerned about has 4, right?
Well, there's 2 recently, one off of McClellan Road, they developed on the corner of McCann foot McClellan. They put a long drive in, got 4 houses in the very back. Same thing over there at Reserve. That, actually, the developer actually did pave, that's what we got complained about, he did pave a single lane going in. He didn't have to do that, he could've left it all gravel, but he was trying to do them a favor. But they started complaining, what if I meet somebody coming in?
4 is not a magic number, you could change that to 1.
Yeah, but.
Same thing at Reserve up there, they have 4 houses at the end of the cul-de-sac going down, but that is a private, it's gonna come up. I think all the developers and stuff, they're selling that as a county road, but that is not a county road.
Yeah.
That is a private drive.
So the only choice we'd have in those that have been, there's what I call that grandfathered in,
Right.
again, that word. So the only choice we have is to take them over. We could not come up with any requirement that anybody had to go back and refix their drive.
No, I mean, because, well, yeah. The reason you can do it prospectively is because you're requiring it to be to certain standards before you'll accept the road.
I understand that,
So, yeah.
but I mean, so the only thing that we can do would be, we would have to take it as.
Well, now, one thing we can do is require that the landowners bring it up to a certain standard, and that's one, you remember several, quite a few years ago now, but there's a checklist of sort of the things you look at when you are considering whether to accept an existing road as a county road, and one of the things is to what degree will you require the landowners to improve it before the county agrees to accept it.
All right, but that's still the bringing it up to standard for us to accept it.
Right.
It's not like
I don't
it's
think.
not like you can set up something and say, okay, you gotta fix your road to this certain standard or you get fined or something like that.
Correct, yeah, I don't think you can pass an ordinance that tells Terry he's gotta improve his driveway.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm just trying to understand,
But we can go on an educational component and say, look, if we can't fit this size vehicle down your driveway and you got 12-foot deep mud holes in it, we can't get to you. Services may be delayed and or, denied.
Inaccessible.
And it's inaccessible, and, at least you're trying to
Well,
trying. I mean, I don't know, it's like when people plant stuff around fire hydrants and such.
well,
You send them a letter and you say, look, lovely landscaping, but we need you to kind of clean this up, or in about 90 days, we're gonna come back and just get rid of it. I mean, there's consequences to it, whether it's an actionable item or it's a discontinuation of service or some sort of, I mean, some people probably some people don't know.
Sure.
Right.
Or they don't realize. They think this nice, pretty little covered drive of old oak trees it is pretty, but like I said, they're driving a Volkswagen or, you know, something, and they don't realize how big a fire truck or how big an ambulance really is.
Yeah, I know there's several places where we can get one of the trucks, the small one, but that's all.
You know, fire trucks are not cheap, but what we're finding out right now is ambulances
They're not
are
cheap.
pushing about $280,000 right now. And,
Yeah.
you know, at some point, you have to own the responsibility of your own property. You know, if I come on there, you're gonna tell me it's your property. I promise you. Quick. All right. Just food for thought. So, discuss updating policies for rec department. You're still awake.
I'm still awake.
It's only been 2 hours.
I can see them over there too. When they go get that?
I feel like I'm back when we did the budget earlier this year. So I put a packet on each of your, in your areas. So the first one is the special event policy. Chairman and I discussed, you know, earlier, removing some unnecessary wording, just a more really detailed explanations that just kind of felt like, you know, didn't really need to be there. Also, for the nonprofit entities, we removed that fee, which used to be the special event fee. It's now listed in just like the fee table that is on page 2. So with that, for nonprofits, we talked about just doing a deposit for that, just for, you know, if there's any damage, you know, cleanup fees, specifically like Memorial Park, because that's where most of our nonprofit events are held. We have the water and electricity that use keys. It's locked up the rest of the time, and then if they use the old gym for the restrooms, because that's the only access we have. So there would be a fee with those keys, and then, you know, once they turn that in, then, you know, they get it back. As long as we said there's no damage, you know, everything's cleaned up, then they would get their deposit back. For areas that didn't have, so like it says deposit due $200, that was like for everything, including Memorial Park. Now, if they didn't use Memorial Park, then obviously that fee would drop then down to just $150 if it was a different area that didn't require keys or anything like that. Like if it was at Sammy Haggard Park, those restrooms are open. There's water hookups and things like that at the pavilions and whatnot. So, also with this document, I took out the part where the chairman would have to sign every one of these. It can still be left in there, but the reason I took it out is because the chairman doesn't sign any of our other documents when we do regular field rentals or pavilion rentals or anything like that. But again, that's the only reason I took it out. Again, it could still be left in there since this is more of a, you know, a bigger special event kind of thing. Do you have any questions? I know it's really thick, but it's everything. It's the application, which also has a little bit of more, I don't know, clearer questions when asking about things, in terms of like peak crowd estimates, if they are going to actually need electrical, you know, things like that, in there. And then the actual contract didn't change at all, other than like
This is just for review and discussion.
yeah, all these things are just
Not
for
voting
review
on
and
this
everything.
tonight.
I just have one question about nonprofit. Is there specific criteria for that, or is that just sort of based?
Nonprofit is, you know, 501c3, somebody like TJ and Friends, those who are raising funds for something.
Yeah,
for
but
campus.
it's defined
on page 1
yeah.
here.
Is it on page 1
Yes,
totally? Okay.
Yeah.
About closer to the bottom and top, nonprofit entity.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah.
So just primarily
Okay, so
for
it is-
cause.
It's pretty inclusive, you don't have to be 501c3.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
just as long as they're fundraising.
I got you. All right, that is good, thank you.
So that's that first document. Then, the background check policy. So we had a couple, instances this season where we had to really dig deep into our policy on some things with a few coaches. And so it got brought up from the rec board to see what other counties did. Turns out, not really any other county around us have a background check policy that's in writing, other than Hart County. So after looking at Hart County's and looking at ours, rec board decided that ours was very cohesive, like it seemed pretty good. Ours was adopted last in 2009, but there were a few things, just making sure that when we say they're going to be checked on an annual basis, that's like the calendar year. So if you get your background check done in November, then you have until the following November. It's not like you have to do another one in January. We have coaches who coach multiple sports, so us trying to do 3 background checks in, 8 months is kind of hard with that. There was also some just discussion on, in terms of years. Right now we have all felony offenses other than like violence or sex within the past 10 years say that, you can't coach. We are running into not having enough coaches sometimes. So it's looked at if we maybe drop that to like 7 years. Again, these are just, kind of recommendations the rec board talked about. And then as far as misdemeanors go, it would drop from 7 years to 5 years, and then multiple offenses within 5 years instead of 7 years for that as well. So again, all of this is just for y'all, informational and for later for discussion.
This, request for proposal was not on your rec department, policy updates. This is just for review. She brought us copies tonight to take home and review. That's why it's not listed on your agenda tonight, gentlemen.
Yeah. Also with, Chairman, I did talk to, Sheriff Moore about the fingerprinting and Brennan, and they said no to the fingerprinting wouldn't be required. It was just kind of overkill for what they already provided.
Perfect.
For that.
To show, because our coaches now are not county employees, do we require drug screens for the coaches?
No, we do not. The only thing that we require is the signed consent form that's attached to that. And then when they run their record, we get anything that they've, been arrested for, shows up. And so we go by that based on this policy. So those are the only things. The next thing, the RFP for concessionaire, I just wanted to go over that and just use a scenario that I talked to the chairman over. We are very short-staffed. I know that's not just us, that's everywhere. But with our programs growing so much, we are in more need of, or I feel like we need to focus on having those scorekeepers, having supervisors, instead of trying to always have concessions. So that's where this RFP came from. For example, today we did get rained out, but we had 6 baseball fields running with games that were scheduled for tonight. We had 2 soccer games, or we have a soccer game on the football field, so at Sammy Haggard Park, for us running all of those games, and, we having upper and lower concession staff. And then also at Brewer Phillips, we had 4 games, about 8 practices, so a supervisor for that, and having concessions run, plus 2 other facilities, the Comer Gym, because we have the Rock, and having volleyball practices over here at the old gym. We would have needed 16 staff people to run tonight, and we didn't. We only had 11, because we were also having to pull people to umpire, our own staff to umpire. We have full-time staff. Last week we had 5 full-time staff working one night because we just don't have enough staff, and that's working in the concessions. We have maintenance guys working in the concessions because we we don't have one. We have our other staff doing scorekeeping and things like that. So, this with a concessionaire would just help us free up and be able to get that staff for those different areas, but then also be able to provide or hopefully get, you know, a local business or someone to extra work, I guess you could say, in the evenings that they might have staff for. I was suggesting, you know, maybe pigskin, if she had something, you know, come in on game days or anything like that and still do, you know, burgers and things like that. But then the rec department would get a percentage, say, you know, 5 or 10% or whatever of what they make, just to kind of cover that cost. So that was my whole idea, thinking behind the concessionaires and that agreement. And I did talk to Michael Pruitt about it, so it is, all the legalities are in there, everything. Yeah, all of that's there. So
actually, we did make a few changes.
Yeah, we did make a few. So, but that's again for your review, and I welcome, you know, any questions, discussions, anything over that y'all may have with that.
I'm sure there'll be several emails between now and then.
Oh yeah, I welcome all the emails, phone calls, totally fine. The next is a scholarship form. We've been having the sports scholarship for as long as I've been there. I'm sure many years before that. And so there's not really any necessarily change to it. It's more of just kind of updating the information that we had already asked for on the form, and getting verification of that, having them actually show documents to prove what they write down instead of us just taking their word for it. We are working to raise money for this, for the fund, so that we can have more kids participate in our programs who may not can afford it, and we just don't want people abusing the system, so to speak. We want to make sure that anybody who does need it, does have access to it, because if we don't have the money, then we can't really, we got to figure some way else to do that.
So where did most of the funding for that come from?
So all of this is, so it's been coming from the county. So the county's basically been kind of absorbing the cost, so to speak, on that. However, we did have our cornhole tournament to raise money for that. It was
We raised over $1,200.
$1,200 roughly for that, just in one day, so it's going towards this. Out of that $1,200, we had already, out of the kids for just this fall, we had about $700 of that for those children. So, it does help out. We do have kids in the county who are in need.
Right. So it's just like you have specific events just to raise for that part, right?
Yes, right now that's what we have.
So we could.
We're trying to cover that so it's not just coming out of our budget.
Right. So you could ask maybe some organizations to help with that or something like that.
Correct.
And have y'all done that?
So our first, that was kind of what got us thinking about doing our rec board as a 501c3, and then after we did some more digging, then we decided against that, just because that would allow them to do a little bit more fundraising and things like that we couldn't. So that kind of leads me into the next document, which is a sign advertisement sponsorship form. And that's kind of all, you know, those funds would help go towards this scholarship with that. So this is for, I know when I came, I had brought this up and Robin said, oh, I like all the fields with the fencing with no signs and stuff on it. But I think this is a good opportunity for local businesses to get their name out there and also benefit the community with that. So this is kind of our sponsorship form that we came up with. Again, this is something that would be new. And we looked at, 1 sign, 2 signs. The signs can be put on the fencing. If they're at the park, they would be metal, obviously because they're outside. And then we could use signs inside the old gym for during volleyball games and other activities that we have. And those would be more of like the yard sign, chloroplast like material instead of metal, because we don't want to be drilling into the bricks on the wall.
So have you, this is just a question, have you approached Anna about contacting Chamber of Commerce members?
Not yet. We actually just kind of went through this whole sponsorship process of trying to develop this in the last week. We did reach out to make sure our pricing was kind of good. We've talked to other other counties. So our goal would be to contact Anna and try to get out there so the community really knows about it.
Yeah, I think that will be, I think it'll come out, it'll work well, I think. The schools do really well filling signs.
Right. I know I did it when I was growing up and playing school ball and everything, so that was something that, even parents could do. Parents could make a little sign, have that put out there.
And I know this is sort of off the subject, but do any businesses sponsor any of the teams over there?
They don't. So we don't have, right now, that's something we've kind of gone back and forth on how to work that, in terms of, so when I worked at Oglethorpe, there was, where a business could sponsor teams, and then their name got put on the back of the jerseys. So with everything the way it is, sublimation and how jerseys are, it's kind of like the process, the order time that we have to get those. So it's like we have to have those sponsors, essentially 2 or 3 months before we place that order. So we did talk about that, and we just couldn't figure out an easy way, so to speak, to do that. But it is still something we are thinking about trying to work with. Maybe, whether if it's not just the jerseys, maybe we work something into, like the hats for baseball, or, having the business name on the side or something like that. So it's still a work in progress, but the signage is what we can come up with right now, to kind of benefit.
How many children are affected, or people are affected by your scholarship program?
So it's really been used a lot this year. I think we've had,
as of today, the remainder in our scholarship program, or our scholarship fund, is $338.51. That is just from August to today.
That's about, 12, 15 kids, roughly, that have used it so far. But the thing is that we're hoping, this is now getting out word of mouth. In the 3 years that I've been here, very rarely would we ever get anybody come in and ask for scholarships. We just didn't have people, they just didn't participate. But now we're getting more and more that are coming in. So in the fall, I know I personally did 6 different scholarship requests for kids just for fall sports. So with basketball, where we're taking right now, we've had two come in the office to do that. So it's getting out there. Word of mouth is getting out there since we've done the cornhole tournament and everything, and actually put that out there that we do have this fund available for kids. So.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I got one more. One more. And this is an RFP. Again, just to look over, this goes back to uniforms and everything like that. Right now, we are using multiple vendors for different things, whether it's, baseball, softball, t-ball, soccer jerseys coming from Challenger, volleyball coming from Go Sports, different things, and coach shirts coming from Chan. So instead, I wanted to put out an RFP for uniforms and coach apparel to come from just one vendor. Maybe by that way we can get better pricing. We would also have up front, we would know exactly what uniforms we would have for the entire year for every season. So we could show that to the community, this is what you're getting. It would also allow us to be able to do package deals for different things, whether it's, soccer, you have your jersey, your shorts and socks and a ball, or, and then baseball, softball, you get hat, jersey, socks, those type things. So it would help us try to get better pricing, but also know up front exactly how much we're going to have to spend for the year, which would then help with if we did have sponsors for teams or sports or anything like that.
And sometimes I know, having dealt with school sports, they go out to the outside, to the people that are outside the cam, the bigger things. But I would like to see that maybe you could work with the chamber and then put that RFP out there to the locals, and maybe they can come up with something. It might expand their businesses even.
Right, and I know we've talked with a couple, we've talked like, Guerrilla Graphics, My Shirt on Your Back, and Chan on different things, and I know Chan's helped us out with, like I said, coach shirts and things like that, but he doesn't have the ability to do jerseys,
right,
for that way, and I know we've gotten some jerseys, from Guerrilla Graphics in terms of volleyball, but those numbers are really small, like there's only 60, whereas, soccer, we had 300 kids, and they get 2 jerseys, so 600 jerseys, and, things like that, so, having that vendor would also be able for them to kind of time frame out a little bit better on things, so, yeah. Any questions? Okay, that's all I have.
Just one thought on the vendor situation, the vendor for concession stands. And the scope of what you're doing is large enough, I can't really imagine if somebody being really wanting to, but offer that for people for fundraising.
So we did reach out when we took over, or we started offering baseball, softball. I know the high school varsity softball team used to do concessions at Diamond Hill. We did reach out to see if that was something they were interested in, and they weren't. But this is still another opportunity that they could be able to do that. I know, again, with this, there are churches. I know Carlton Baptist is kind of really big on wanting to do a lot of things for us, and so this may be something that some churches or anybody around us, if the community wants to be involved, might be able to.
So in your application, you might want to make I don't know if it'd be separate, it'd be the same thing, same rules for.
Right, and that would be something I have to work out, talk with Max and work out.
Thank you.
Jim, on the special event policy, I was just curious, just quickly, I'm looking at the fee table, not necessarily for the money, but like the designation of small, medium, large, and very large. When you start, at least in my mind, when you start hitting the large, very large, especially for, I'm just gonna say, outside people that we might not be affiliated with, any concern or thoughts that we require and have that organization pay for a deputy to be there for some sort of events like that?
We can, and that can be something, that if there's any other required staff, that we see fit for the event, it's something that we can definitely put in there and ask that they pay, whether it's whatever, having the on-call deputy, just to kind of be there, or having an extra deputy for their time.
Sheer volume all of a sudden, especially if we're not, if it's not like a TJ and Friends kind of group that we're familiar with, it may be helpful to you as when you're reviewing an application, say, yeah, this all looks good, however, we're gonna require you to,
for larger,
maybe give you a little bit of peace of mind.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely would, just in general, regular rec games would be.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay.
No,
thank you.
Christopher, you waiting on this? Are you waiting on this to be done? I mean, I've been to say, if you're waiting on just that, we can skip that, because it's gonna be a minute. If you wanna go, I seen you tired, I know you gotta be back in here in the morning. If you want me to postpone this until the next meeting, I can do it then.
No, it's all right.
All right. Discuss 2022 budget. Again, this is just throwing out there, y'all all have a copy of it. If there's any questions and concerns, if y'all would like for us to start bringing in departments, for a couple hearings, I'm open to that. They're open to that.
You were all given this budget at the last meeting, the proposed budget.
Can you put a schedule of departments together so we don't have to have everything by memory when we start talking?
3, 5. Any particular ones you want to start with? You want to try to do 3 department heads, 5 department heads? Do them on a Thursday, something? I don't know how y'all want to do it.
Not particularly, I just think it'd be neat, or it'd be nice to kind of know the flow of things in case something needs to.
So do y'all want Kathy to start scheduling budget work sessions?
Yeah, I mean, we'll need to get on it.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. Yes. And I guess we need the dates, you know, figure out what, so that we are, and timing, what everybody can meet, you know, that,
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a better day than others, I know. What is it? It's not Wednesday. I figured that out. It's not Wednesday. What day is the best for you?
Friday's actually the best day for me.
Okay.
But that's
We could consider them doing, just a little bit ahead of when we're normally gonna have a meeting, so we all got that time designated anyway.
Brian, are you working mornings?
yeah, I mean, I'm, after about 3 o'clock, I'm good during the week, so. I prefer to do it in the evenings, and if you did it before a meeting, that's good. If we did that.
That'd probably be easiest, but I want them all on rainy days, basically.
Schedule around rainy days.
Well, and that would be good for me too, because I can always find plenty to do on sunny days too.
The budget work sessions will be something that Kathy will reach out to the commissioners to plan.
Okay.
But I'll definitely let her know.
We do that maybe at
what's working best.
4:30 on a meeting night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would give us 2 of them a month, we're already here, I'm ready.
Yep.
And if y'all look through there and if anything sticks out to you, you know, go ahead and get in touch with Kathy ahead of time if there's anything that sticks out. I know there is one change in here, that I was made aware of today, and I guess we're sort of kind of stuck with that, and it's the extension office because of the teacher's retirement. They got an increase, so therefore we have to match it. It's out of our control. It's not much, $600-700, but still, it's one of our obligations. All right. Looks good. Y'all wanna go? Y'all can hang out if you want to. By the way, thank you and your staff, by the way. I mean, I'm hearing record numbers for sign-ups for the rec department.
Cindy, by the way, this is our new assistant director, and then Holly Haynes is our new program coordinator who took over for Justin.
And since they're leaving, I'll just brag to the board, both my children play at the rec department, and Cindy stepped in and she umpired one of my
I've
daughters.
umpired all week last week, and I will be umpiring all this week if you
Yes.
guys really want to show.
And so she really did a good job umpiring. She did a good job. She didn't realize that my daughter was playing catcher, and it was her first time playing. She did a good job of showing her passion for children on both teams. So since I seen that and y'all weren't there, I do want to express that to y'all. Our assistant director's doing a good job.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And just like I bragged on the road department, I've also got good comments about the rec department, so I appreciate
Thank you.
it. Very good.
Well, the numbers speak volumes.
Thank you, y'all have a good night.
Discuss T-Splosh. Come on, Anna.
Y'all know we have T-Splosh coming up November the 2nd. I'm gonna go by the little email that Derek sent out and everything else, the different questions that he had and everything else, to try to cover some of those and everything. He sent out to all the commissioners and stuff. I'm just gonna roughly go through some of those and everything else. A general time frame and life cycle for paved and dirt roads. Can you really give that, it really determines on, my biggest thing, how many transfer trucks and stuff do you have going down that road? I've been up there close to 10 years. We've had some roads we've resurfaced. We've done different types of treatments on them. We've done rock, seal coats first and then leveling. We've done just plain asphalt. We've done, this year we're doing a leveling and then a resurface on top of that. So it depends on what's really the type of the road goes on and then what type of traffic that you have on top of the roads. I've talked to Adam Nation, I'm getting a little bit off, but I've talked to Adam Nation and Chris Dills that used to work for DOT. He just retired from DOT last December. He has actually just did a study out there for Greene County. He's fixing to do one for Oglethorpe County if they approve it. That is something if T-Splosh passes or even if it does not pass, I think will be in our best interest to get done. It could be around maybe 66,000 if the numbers show up the same. Let me get to my right sheet here. But what you would get out of that study would be, he would ride each road, he would get a front camera view and a back camera view of the whole road. He would ride down, you would have the striping, he would grade the striping. You would actually have a picture of all the signs that are currently on the road to say if he wrote it today, we would know all the signs are done. So if we write it, didn't we use stop sign, we could actually go back and review that video and say, yes, we had a curb sign right there that's missing or whatever, if we needed to do that. But the biggest thing is they would actually grade the roads. And just like giving a grade on a test. 90 to 100, 80 to a 90, 70 to a 80, or below. They actually do it below 70 is actually failing. That's some of the roads like we got Timber Lane right now. We were actually going to mill up and start completely over. It's beyond repair where a seal coat is not going to buy you any time. It's not going and it will actually present a different, what he thinks is the best preservation for that road. That's what it's actually called as preservation ideas. Let's see. He said approximately $66,000. I told you for the study it would probably cost. I'm going to try to write with him. He said State Route 12, which is more towards Greene County, somewhere down that road. He actually did this with the state. I think he has 4 or 5 different types of preservations he did on this one state route. So he did this type of preservation this many miles. He did this preservation this many miles. So he took Adam Nation down there a couple of weeks ago and actually rode that road with him. And he said it really shows you the differences between the roads. So either way, and then at the end of, after he does this and everything else, you can have a one map on here. Okay, we have this many red dots on roads. We got this many yellow dot roads. That's red's beyond repair. Yellow dots for getting where you got to level, resurface, or milling, just like we did on some of our Adams Clark Road this year. Doing the extra mile. Now you're getting into your grades of the blue, green is the next, and then the blue was the highest. Green is a level road right now that you can actually seal coat and maybe buy yourself 5 or 8 years that you don't have to really do anything else. Seal coat it, and then it's actually sealing all your cracks and everything else. That's the biggest problem that we have. Once your water gets down below the surface of the road, like Derek gave the illustration earlier, if you have a roof, when the water gets through and everything else, it's the damage that the water does once it gets on the inside. If you can keep that water out, you don't have that damage and everything else. But it's when the water gets on the inside or underneath the asphalt, that's when you really have the damage and everything else. We actually bought, when we bought our crack sealer, when we bought our patch wagon a couple, 5 or 6 years ago, we actually bought a crack sealer. Sealant. We've used it just a few times. I have not put out a whole load of crack sealing. We don't have the manpower to do that. That is a possibility using T-Splosh. We could actually pay for the manpower to do stuff like that and everything else if we wanted to. That is a possibility. We've checked into that and everything else. No, we don't want to focus on that part, but that is a possibility to maybe just dedicate one person out of Splosh, his salary, just to run patch wagon. I mean, the crack sealer, we might can use inmate labor to correlate with him to do the main labor part, but he's just there to really supervise. So, but that is our biggest thing with that. The road preservation is what we really need to go that will make our T-Splosh go even further down the road and everything else. I think that will buy us a lot of time for our T-Splosh to make it go a lot further. We have actually put out roughly gravel this year, about $212,000 worth of gravel. That is just the cost of gravel. That's no hauling fees. We're doing all our own hauling and everything. No labor. That's actually what we've actually put out on dirt roads and stuff this year and everything else. What we actually hauled on. That's probably the most we've ever put out since I've been up there. So I'm going to say by the end of the year it will be easily $300,000. That's all stuff that this T-Splosh money will be used for, along with your drop when we go down roads, replacing cross drains, replacing your driveway pipes that are completely stopped up, which we cannot flush out and stuff. So that's all different stuff that we can use T-Splosh on. General costs are different roadway treatments. I'm gonna get further into Chris Dills and everything else. He's gonna come by and meet with me next Wednesday, maybe, I think. So he's gonna go over all the different types of preservations. He says he'll be glad to do a slideshow with us and show us these different types and see what's the most cost-effective for us as a county if we decide to go with him to do the study. And I think that will definitely help us out. Right now, what we did to Adams Clark Road, We milled and patched all the bad areas. We went level coated it, and then we went back and resurfaced it. That was about $150,000 per mile. If we go from dirt road to paved road, we got a figure of about $425,000. That is the company coming in. We do all the grading. It's not county grading everything. We get the base ready, then they come in, put the 8 inches of gravel, compact it down to 6, 1.5 inches of topping, 2 inches of binder, then 1.5 inches of topping on top of that. That's about $425,000 to go from a dirt road to a paved road.
Per mile.
Per mile, that is correct. So we have, y'all seen the numbers on our 456, let's see, 456.28 paved road miles in our county that we maintain. That's not counting state routes or anything. And then we have 112.25 dirt road miles. So we have a lot of mileage in there. And if you figure out that if we did resurface 10 miles a year, which we're doing now, roughly, I think we did 8.7 last year. If you did 10 miles a year, you could resurface. It would take us 45 years to make it all the way around the county. Paved roads nowadays are not going to hold up to that. That's why we thought the best thing is see what we can do to preserve these roads as long as we can, put that cost out there as long as we can out there, make them last. Let's see, we talked about the other crack sealing equipment. Like I said, I already have that. It's just the manpower to run it. I know we're getting, y'all put in the budget 2 more positions. If we get that approved and everything else for that, that will actually help out a little bit, but I still, not everything, Todd wants done everything else. We can put them everywhere doing different stuff. I mean, there's different lists that we have out there, things that can be done and everything else.
I meant to add, before we get done, the hydro seeder, what did it tell them?
Hydro seeder, we've used it probably 6-7 times since we were up there. Since I've been up there about 10 years, we used it on Davis on Church Road. We've used it here. We've helped the high school out 1 or 2 times. We went to help the high school out again, and we had to put a battery in it. Me and Derek got all the fertilizer, the mulch and stuff up top, everything else. I said, let's go wash this thing out, because it had a lot of rust up underneath on the inside from the plate. So let's go wash this thing out. The water was coming out of the hydro seeder faster than it was going into the hydro seeder. So we put it up on Gov Deals, and I said, it's not useful for us for as much as we use it. I would rather a straw blower. We just hand seed it, go get a straw blower. We put it on Gov Deals. It went for $17,700. I was really surprised by that and everything else. I figured that we might get 7, 8, maybe 10,000 out of it. It actually went for, we got $17,700. He had to pay, by the time the seasons of 21, 22,000 for it. So it was good for somebody, but somebody's going to sink a little bit of money into it for that to be used and everything else.
We'll be turning that back into a straw blower with attachments.
So that would most utilize us. We washed it out good all the time that we had it, but it's still the flush outs. There's going to be a lot of rebuilding on the drains and everything on that. So, any other questions on T-Splosh? I don't know if I covered. I think I might have covered everything.
I think that's it. 2022 Elmeg Road projects.
I think y'all got sent the list. Also, about going back to T-Splosh, I think Christina sent y'all that to all y'all and everything. That's got a lot of good, useful information. If we can get Zach a copy of that, but what T-Splosh is used for and everything, that's very good, useful information on that.
That's from ACCG, isn't it?
That is, that's correct. Elmeg, y'all had the roads that we've completed this year, and down at the bottom, Booger Hill and Moons Grove was milled and patched in 2021. The other roads that we had left over from our list last year was Timber Lane Drive, which we knew when they get done with Stratton & Sons, when they get done with Franklin County, we're going to get them back in here to do our patching over our culverts and stuff. And then I think we're going to get a price from him to go into Timber Lane and mill up all that, and we'll put it back out. But when we start redoing our base on that road, that's one of those that beyond repair. We're going to mill all the way up and start over. So we're going to redo ditches and stuff, but that's going to be a good way just to reutilize some of that as some of our base. Bishop Carey Road, then you got Booger Hill, Moons Grove. East Commerce Road, it has a lot of bad spots and everything else. I think on that road, a good thing would be to mill and patch it like we did Booker Hill and Moons Grove. I think that would buy us a little bit of time on that. But I would like to get with Chris Dills on that, if that is something we do, see what his opinion is. But do the milling and patching on East Commerce Road, because if not, technically, if we just do East Commerce Road, that's just about going to eat up our LMIG money for 1 year and everything else. It's such a long road from one end to the other. Then the other roads is Lem Edwards Road. That one's going to have to be a lot of tree removal. That might have to be a bid out. Me and Todd rode all these roads last week, most of these roads last week. Lem Edwards is going to be a lot of tree removal. A lot of work's going to be done with that, so that might be a thing that we bid out because we don't have time to do all the tree removal, just like they're doing down here with the state, where they're getting up the trees and stuff, and they're sending them right through a chipper, one of the barrel grinders and stuff. Other one will be Russell Drive and Cooper Drive. That's down there at the feed mill. Both of those are deteriorating very fast. So those two definitely need to be up a little bit. Forts and Compton Road, that is the road the middle school is on. That road was put in so fast, I don't know if the base really got put down the way it needed. I know it did not sit the way it needed to sit. Like we like to do, leave them for 6 months, get all the settlement out of them. I know that did not happen down there because it had to be such a fast reaction to when that opened up and everything. Then the other one is Aaron Brown Road, left over from last year's list. And then other two that I had that's been mentioned, there might have been some others. I think there might have been a few others, but Macedonia Church Road, Brian Kirk's mentioned that one, and then me and Todd's Road, Farm Road. And both of those, but I do not have the mileages on those two, but they're all lengthy road. But
this will give everybody an opportunity to ride your roads and give us a list back and literally take the current list and prioritize, okay, is this one worse than this one? I fully expect the T-Splosh to probably pass with flying colors, but we still need to do our 2022 LMAG and be in a prioritized way.
Even if we submit, whatever we submit to LMIG and everything else, we might submit a list, but you can make changes on that list at any time. So just like we did this year, we actually had Timberlane and Bishop Carey on the list last year to do. Okay, we didn't do that. We reset our agenda. We did this portion. We left those two off. They're going to be moved to later on down the road. You can actually do that. We'll actually do that when we send it in this year, saying our corrections and stuff. We did not do Timberlane. We did not do Bishop Carey, but we did this instead. We did this instead to spend a lot of the amount of money. So, any other questions?
Alan, can you give an update on H.B. Chandler? I know there's been some conversation about that railroad patching and who's doing that, and if we need to step in and do a little bit of.
Hopefully, we talk. Mr. Frank and I talked and everything else. We're hoping maybe the plant is going to replace the underneath. What's wrong with it down there? All the railroad ties are deteriorated on that crossing. So that has to be done. We're hoping have you had any more dealings with the company?
Asked the executive vice president to find a contractor to replace the cross ties underneath the, tracks.
That's the first thing that has to be done. And then we thought maybe we could go back and just resurface after they do that. We could actually do the asphalt part on that as a county portion just to share that burden and everything else. But none of that's been said. We're waiting on to see if they can get that done first. But without that, we've actually put millings in there and everything else, try to fix the potholes. It just bounces right back out because there's so much clay in those railroad ties and everything else. They're just completely deteriorated. So,
Alan, as part of the survey that the guy that's retired from the state does, and I guess I got a vested interest in East Commerce Road, does he evaluate the traffic also? Because East Commerce Road, we've increased the traffic tonight that it's going to see.
That needs to be definitely evaluated in our process. I don't know if he does that. I can find out when I talk to him next week.
And the reason I ask that is I know, besides Zach's end of the road that's off of 98, there's at least one grading contractor and 2 trucking companies that utilize that road now. And that's none of the live haul
Right. That's correct.
vehicles or feed trucks or the B&GC trucks. You know, I mean, the list just goes on and on. And I, regardless of where it's at in the county, because I know Macedonia Church Road sees an awful lot of live haul and feed trucks and stuff like that. In our county, it needs to be part of the equation.
That's one thing I've always stressed is the number of vehicles that go up and down the road is because that's why we're not able to get to the subdivision and stuff like that. I'd never considered that yes, we're helping out a few people in that subdivision. Yes, they're very important, but they're not the main thoroughfare roads and everything else. You look at what we've done the last few years and stuff, it's been all the major thoroughfare roads trying to help out everybody that uses that road, and not just a few that's going to benefit from a subdivision and stuff like that.
I just give up on the county. I just call the millions.
You actually did.
I'll just call Jackson County.
Yeah, I call Jackson County when I need
Lim
to.
Edwards it's gonna take a lot of work, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no shoulders, there's not even an existence of an old shoulder.
No. It's straight from the white line, straight down to the ditch right there and everything else.
It has a high volume of cars too, but there's a lot of school buses goes that way. It's a good cut through to the east side of Athens, but,
Commissioner Adams' point's really good. That part of the survey should be not only the number of the traffic flow, but the type of vehicles.
agreed.
We can probably get most of that information from the state, because they do, if you'll see the little crossings every once in a while, they come through every so often through the county and do put them out, and so we can get all those studies from the county and try to incorporate that along with even if he does not.
He could assemble it, surely.
I'm sure he probably can put it all in the same scenario and everything else, grade it that way, so.
All right, so discuss anything else on the 2022 LMEG road projects. Hang on, ain't this you two?
Oh, I'm still
Yeah. Discuss approving a resolution adopting the updated solid waste management plan.
That's great.
That's a 11 county region me and Mary Beth go to, out when we meet. We haven't been meeting very much because of COVID and everything else, but that is area-wide stuff. We voted as a region to go out, let them do this study and everything else. All it is a 10-year plan to guarantee that we have a place for our trash to go within the next 10 years and everything else. All of ours is hauled out. We are a transfer. Our people bring it in, we load in the transfer truck, and it goes all the way back out. But we are guaranteed, I think they guarantee their place to haul, be able to 16 or 17 more years where we are hauling it to now.
Alan, has there been any conversation about the placement of some recycling bins or dumpsters in the county anywhere?
There has not been any talk about that. I mean, that would be, my thing on that would be, do you want to put a person there to man it? Because if not, if you just put a dumpster out there, just say for recycling. I know Clark County, they go through this a bunch. We have not had to pay for any of our recycling because our stuff has been so clean. They actually started last Friday. We are going to have to start paying a fee to take our recycling out to Clark County. Another company took it over. So, but Clark County has several places like that all over, but a person that comes up and has a recycling, they're going to dump everything into one bin. So, or they're going to put the trash in there, and that's my concern with putting the recycling canisters out throughout the county and stuff. We'll have to go pick them up. Then once it comes back in, we've got to sort it and see how much of it is actually recycling. And you're actually going to pay a higher fee. Right now, we're paying about $51 a ton for our trash to be hauled off. For commingle, which is your bottles, your plastics, everything but the paper, we'll be paying $72.50, I think it is, per ton. And then the mixed paper will be paying $92.50.
So it costs more to recycle than
Yes,
it
sir.
does to dispose of.
Extremely expensive. Just for a cardboard dumpster. Waste Pro had told me it was
$85 a month for me to be able to recycle and them to be able to sell it. I just said, no, just send me a regular dumpster for 40. I mean, recycle's a great idea, but it's an expensive idea.
We do still get paid for our cardboard. There's not a fee for that, so all our perforated cardboard and stuff, we can still recycle all that. But all your cereal boxes and stuff, that goes back into your mixed paper and stuff.
Mike, do I need to read this, or can we just adopt and sign this?
You just adopt and sign it.
Thank you, sir.
I think all the counties are doing. I covered Oconee's work session last week from a friend there who was out of town, and they have this exact same resolution, so I think all 11 counties are doing it.
Does everybody have a copy of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll ask for a motion to adopt resolution to adopt the Northeast Georgia Regional Solid Waste Management Plan.
Make a motion to adopt the plan.
Hang on.
I just had one question. Does this obligate you to continue to use the MRF that Athens Clarke County operates?
No, this is not. The only reason we've used that one is because it's always been for free. And they've never charged us because our recycling is so clean, it made theirs actually improve their number-wise and everything else. But we cannot get a hold of Suki out there. She was really good friends with Sandra Webb, our former director and everything. We cannot get in touch with her, so we can't get a phone call about it. We've sent emails, everything. We can't get back in touch with her, so to see if our arrangement was still available or not. So I told Mary Beth last week, I told Tommy, go and take the last load out there last Thursday that we had full. So I told Mary Beth, go and get the information. That's when I got the numbers, how much it was going to cost us. But going back to those numbers and stuff, it's not as big of a difference as you think. If we, right now, for this year, how much we have taken out there was about $5,400. $5,400 and stuff. After that, if we did it for the whole year, it's going to be about $7,600, $7,800 if we continue to recycle just like we have been, and what it would actually cost us to take it out there for the whole year. But either way, if we have to dump it and everything, it's going to cost us that $51 a ton anyway, so it's not going to actually cost us $7,500 for the whole amount. It's going to be about half that is actually going to cost the county, or increase what it's going to cost us per year to keep doing exactly like we have been.
So this agreement essentially reserves us a slot, so we know we have a place to go with it, but it doesn't mandate that it goes out there.
That's right, right.
So if you find a better deal
Oh, yes,
somewhere.
that's correct, yes.
And I'll share Suki's number.
Thank you.
All right, so,
You can call Suki and say Frank's fixing to call?
No, I didn't call her.
Hey, can we all get Suki's number evidently? She's really important.
Just saying, helps to have a few relations.
all right, so do I have a motion to adopt the resolution for the North Shore Regional Solid Waste Management Plan?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nostrum. Second by Mr. Adams. Any discussion? Hearing none. Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries. This is not the original, is it?
No, I'll do
Okay.
mine.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Discuss IDDA moving into the old Board of Elections office. So we're a little behind the 8 ball on this because we're already in the old Board of Elections office. The question is for everybody to think about, and this was presented to me from Josh, was how do we want to go with this? Do we want to do a 1-year lease agreement, structured like some of the other properties? What his suggestion was is for us to let them solely be the owner of the building, and then that way we wouldn't have the upkeep on it. I told him I agreed, but that would be a board decision as to how to move forward into a contract for the IDBA in the current location that they're in now, the new location they're in now. So again, this is something, Frank may have something to add to this, but I think everybody's up and running, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's a win-win for us to give them the building, and I say that because
they are a branch of the Board of Commissioners. This would help budgets stay in line, because right now I think we partially pay for this and they partially pay for that. This way it'll just be theirs, but yet they are part of us. They will maintain their power, their phone, the electricity, or any general maintenance, where if we contract it out or lease it out, they still may be responsible for the utilities, but we would be responsible for the building, the heating and air, the roof, parking lot, so forth and so on. This probably does not have to have a vote tonight. This is a discussion for everybody to be thinking, how do you want to move on this? Mike, no particular timetable?
No, sir. I mean, Frank and I talked about it earlier. The first thing I drew up was I haven't done a deed, I drew up a lease, trying to think about how to do that. I mean, the county obviously doesn't want to be obligated to maintaining major structural elements and mechanical components for a long period of time. So if you leased it, the only way I could think of to do it would be the way we have with some of the state agencies or have done with the past, where basically you say, here it is, you can stay there, but we're not going to repair anything. If you don't like the condition it's in, you can fix it yourself or you can move out. The alternative, you know, in that kind of situation, the IDA, you know, they don't have much incentive to put a lot of money in improving it because they don't know if they're going to stay there. So deeding it does seem to be the simpler route. And there's no gratuities problem with that because it's another, you know, subdivision of the state.
I did do some research on this. This property was purchased by the Board of Commissioners 12 years ago, is that right? During Anthony's term.
It was.
And
it's a really good deal.
The property was purchased total $500,000. Now there's 4 buildings on that property which would well value more than what the board paid for it. And it was a very good investment when they done it. So to say that we would actually lose anything of any value by giving it over to the IDA, we would not, because the other buildings would stand for the original.
It was at the worst part of the Great Recession.
Yeah.
I remember.
But it was still a good move.
It was a good move. I remember Anthony saying that he thought the pipe in the ground probably cost more than the county paid for the whole thing.
The sad part was they couldn't get the closure on it and to get the rest of it for, was it merely $25,000? They could have had the whole thing.
$66,000 for the rest of that circle and the next circle down.
Yeah.
Those are $229.
That tells you times was tough.
More. They wouldn't do that. I begged them to, but they would not do that.
Anthony did too.
Is there anything you'd like to add on this, Frank?
No, I appreciate y'all letting me participate, but for the simple thing is, you know, in the courthouse, when we had the great flood, it aggravated a lot more mold and mildew and so forth in the building. If you'd like to see the video, it's really enlightening. So therefore, we've been kind of dual offices. We've rented a property there on the courthouse square, and because my office didn't get flooded, I stayed in it, and you know, y'all were nice enough to give us the keys to the old elections office. So I said, you know, y'all are part of the county. If you kick us out, you know, well, you got a nice painted building, and I've got a couple guys that have been working with that are very talented at painting and sheetrock and so forth. I found new skills. So.
That's good to know, Alan.
Yeah, but we've got the facility. I would like to get something cleared up. There's some things that we need to do as far as insurance is related. You know, I don't want to have where y'all are paying insurance and then we pay insurance. You know, it's a lot easier for us if we, you know, get it cleared up and what we're going to do. But for me, that's y'all's call. Y'all are in the driver's seat, and we're just along for the ride. And I would ask for your consideration to deed it to the IDA. And just so you know, I think in the actual formation of the IDA, if the IDA falls off the planet, everything reverts back to Madison County Board of Commissioners.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, the question I was fixing to ask.
That is in the.
That's right.
The actual, creation of the IDA.
Because basically it's all a subdivision of the county or.
It really, I mean,
It's, the IDA is an instrumentality of the state of Georgia and of Madison County.
Okay.
Kind of fits in both molds, and it's only to service, the limits of Madison County. And when you start looking, you know, if you get down to brass tacks, said they, you know, we only exist to complement you and the other, taxpayers in the county.
Just to ask the question, in the event the IDA were to find a facility that better suited your needs, and you know, this is down the road or in everybody's dream, should you vacate the property, would it revert back to the county then?
we could put a reverter clause in it that would make that.
I believe it would be prudent on our part to do that, and then I'm good with this, you know.
And that'd be I think, very, very wise idea on behalf of the commission to do that. You never know who you might want to put over there if we vacated.
No, my thought process is at some point in the future, you guys may want an office facility that also has something like a lay-down yard or a shop.
Yes, sir.
That you could expand into, and should that time come for us, then this building could be used again for another purpose by the county.
Yes, sir.
And if y'all are good with that, I think it's in our best interest to move forward like we're doing.
I know y'all have a fairly good attorney. We have a brilliant attorney that works for us, but maybe between the two of them.
And they get along really well.
Maybe between the two of them, we could get the attorney to draft that up, and you know, I don't know who's gonna have to front that bill. I know he's real expensive when he works for us, but.
All right, between you and Terry, I've had enough of this.
I'm starting to wonder if we need Mike to go and get one of those tests to see just how many personalities.
Mike, I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. Mike made a comment to me the other day, and he says after going to some of his other meetings that he has to attend, through other counties, let's put it that way, that he ought to pay us to come here. I'm gonna take him up on it.
I told him I'm only gonna say this if you don't take me up on it.
I'm thinking I'm gonna take him up, but it's good to know that he does represent us and the IDA, and in comparison to the other areas that he sees over, that we are much better. So I really appreciate that, Mike.
It is entertaining.
It's definitely
Mr. Chairman, if I might, said one of the things that I'll invite any of y'all, if you'd like to participate tomorrow, I've got a meeting with the Northeast Regional Commission and the City of Commerce, and we're gonna meet in the, probably the back of the aisle of restaurant, since we had a newspaper lady come do a story about how important, rural restaurants are to rural development. Said but one of the things that we'll be discussing the moving forward on the CDBG project for the inclusion of the MISE system into the main water system to make that happen. As y'all know, we got a $529,000 grant to do that, and then where we'll be applying for the funds from OPB on the recovery funds. So and kind of where we need to go in that application process. But for me, if y'all like to come and participate, sit there, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, so Mike, you know what to prepare? Good idea on it anyway?
Yeah, I've got everything except a legal description. Did we need a new survey? Or
We will.
Okay.
Because of the way that thing's platted off, it's not accurate, either that or I would rather have a new one for the fact that Q Public is showing it wrong. It's showing the parking lot to the adjacent building being part of that plat down there.
Right.
So it'd be better to just do a replat on it and get that
Okay.
parking lot back to its original.
So yeah, I can prepare everything, and just if you want to get our county surveyor on it, I'll just plug that in when it's done.
Absolutely, no problem.
Thank you.
I'm looking there, she's like, not me, I get it. All right, it was urgent matters, it was gonna be nothing urgent until 5 o'clock, 4:30, when urgent come across my desk, and it was a proclamation for National Code Compliance Month, October 2021, and he felt like doing it at the end of the month would be a little less impactful, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna read this out now. If my eyes will stay open long enough, Christopher. Whereas code enforcement officers provide for safety and welfare of the citizens throughout the United States, throughout the enforcement of local codes and ordinance facing various issues of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health, and life and safety. And whereas the code enforcement officers often have a challenging and demanding role and often do not receive recognition for a job they do in improving living and working conditions for residents, businesses, and local communities. And whereas the role of many code enforcement officers have expanded in recent years with the increased number of foreclosed and abandoned homes in communities impacted economically, and whereas the code enforcement officers are dedicated and high qualified professionals, it's a stretch.
Chris, did you write this?
Yeah, it sounds like it. Who share the goals and preventive neighborhood deterioration, enhancing and ensuring safety and property values through knowledge and application of housing, zoning, nuisance codes, and ordinances. And whereas code enforcement officers often have a highly visible role in the community they serve and the regular interact with a variety of state officials, county officials, first responders, legislative boards, commissions, agencies, and bodies. And whereas code enforcement officers are called upon to provide quality customer service and excellence to the residential and business of the community in which they serve. And whereas the American Association of Code Enforcement wants to recognize our code enforcement officers and professionals all across the United States and bringing awareness to the importance of code enforcement to the community of the United States, communities of the United States. And whereas the American Association of Code Enforcement was established in 1988 for the purpose of providing ongoing training and support for code enforcement professionals working in the United States. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed. First, I need a motion.
So moved.
Is this okay for you, Chris?
Oh, are we gonna have some discussion? What about Chris Roach and the Lone Ranger?
He's been doing a phenomenal job.
So I have a motion by Mr. Dahlster, a second by Mr. Kirk. Now discussion. That thing just grew. That was like chewing gum. It was just growing. The more I read it, kept getting longer and longer. Christopher, you must have
I forwarded a PDF.
Wow, it's lucky this is a work session.
What's it gonna be like when he's been here for 2 years?
I mean, I am honored to have you as a staff member to this county, and you do a very good job, but this is a little much here, bud.
I say, let's get.
Y'all might edit it, please.
I'm on a flog, but no, you don't get any raise whatsoever.
So, I have two motions for a do better and a attaboy. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none. Dennis?
No. Yes.
Yes.
Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the month of October 2021 as National Code Compliance Month, and call upon municipalities and communities to join in recognizing and experiencing their appreciation for the dedication and service by individuals who serve as our code enforcement officers. Wow. That's the only reason you stayed.
We do thank you, Chris.
Yes.
But don't expect even a lunch. Okay?
And I don't.
My feelings, I'd take a hot pot.
Executive session, discuss real estate acquisitions, personal matters, or potential litigations.
No, sir.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Check your calendar, stay on, check your calendar.
Oh, check your calendar. Yeah, everybody check your calendar, not y'all. Young man, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. It normally is not this long, I promise.
Not a minute.
But we got a lot going on.
They'll be on the same road.
I don't have any,
Well, good game.
no comment.
Thank you.
Well, actually, it looks like
Every 5 years, I need the DA to sign
The,
the validation.
There you go.
the information I got from Josh, is our board is available any week, any evening the week of the 18th, except the 21st. Then I got another flashback that the 18th is also no good. So that leaves, I'm gonna be gone the 19th and the 20th, and y'all have to be there. But that only leaves Friday that week. So do we go back and look for another one, or we'll do something on Friday?
Yeah. How about, what's 21st?
21st is a Thursday.
I'm gone. Well, no, I'm here the 21st. Yeah, if we need to do it the 21st.
To meet your boy.
21st would work for me. Let you there.
Eric?
I can make the 21st work, yeah.
Brian, you gonna have to, we got 3 out of 4 cuts.
What time we doing it?
Start 6.
On the 21st?
Yeah.
I won't, I mean, I don't, you know, I've got me a backup, but I won't be.
Yeah.
Gene Mullis can't do it on the 21st.
We're not gonna be able to get everybody.
I know, I just want you to know.
5 out of 6 ain't bad. Y'all wanna,
It's either that or Friday. I think probably not.
can any of y'all do 5 instead of 6? I don't know. I'm just trying to keep y'all from being out so late, 'cause tonight.
I'll do, yeah, the 21st, earlier is better for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can do anytime, earlier anytime is better.
But I mean, earlier, I'm saying after 3 or so, you know.
Yeah, anytime after 3.
I'm good, as long as it's raining.
Still gotta check that calendar on that one.
So y'all wanna,
Derek, what, you got the day job, what?
The 21st after 3's fine with me, or 3 or after,
So we'll say 5?
Let's say 3:30, and then
Say 3:30?
that way I can be home.
Christine, I'm gonna come clean that mess up tomorrow.
Can you do that?
Think your video's still on?
can,
Yep.
Mr. Kirk, can you do 3:30?
I can do 3:30.
Mr. Pruitt?
Yeah, I've got something else, but I'll get one of my partners to cover it.
Okay.
Okay.
So-
I'll get that information to Josh then.
And I can send out an email tomorrow, so October the 21st at 3:30.
Yeah.
BOC and IDA board to meet.
All right.
Where we gonna meet?
Email me so I can
We'll
do my
we'll get all that.
Okay.
It'll be
Yeah,
on
make sure
site
you email it
somewhere,
to me.
either be the library, Farm Bureau office, or something like that.
We'll
We'll get
settle on that.
details to follow.
Details?
And you'll send an email confirming that?
Yes.
I'll move adjourned.
Yeah.
I think that's already happened.
Yeah.
Right to the camera was doing.
Mr. Pruitt?
All right.
I got the quick claim
Like it's gonna be very
we got them all
long
signed
tonight.
and stuff today.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that right?
I thought it was
Oh,
gonna be
yeah, so, I'm sorry, I just got swamped.
But hey,
It's okay.
at least we
I don't
know
need
that they really need. It's a whole lot better than you laugh.
Well, I have some of my folders, some of these things, and some not.
Yeah.
What I would do.
Well, I left mine up out of respect for that gentleman right there.
Well, see, I'm doing this for one, because we don't have a,
Give them the
district three commissioner, so I just
Go
took the whole area.
That-
Yes, sir.
That will be done.
And we'll be done.
Okay.
We need to tell them to get a
Actually, it might be better if we do it, it's easier, because, once they get it sorted, we need to,
I feel
they
pretty
need
comfortable
to
just
put
with
their
y'all.
insurance on it.
Yep.
Brian, when you get your fire department, get it insured, because the county will take it off their insurance.
The what now?
Get the fire department insured, the building.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll just
Yeah,
send an email out about that tomorrow too.
yeah, once you send that to Mark and yeah, I should know it as good as my name, but I can't remember sometimes. But yeah, if you'll send it, both of them, just let them know to make sure. Now, when will that end?
Whenever I email Dan and tell him.
Okay, so we just need a time frame, because all that,
Well, I won't take it off until they can get the quick claim, they'll have to